What is up? It is Sunday night. I'm trying to get in the groove of doing stuff like this pretty much every day. I want to try to get like a schedule going. So I'm thinking Sundays I might do like a weekly wrap up with whatever went on during the week, just something quick. I'm also going to incorporate as much like Q&A into this as possible. I want people who are watching in the chat to get a voice in this too, getting to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So I figured we'd jump in, talk about a couple of the signings that the 49ers had this week. The first one, bringing in Darqeuze Dennard back, who was there towards the end of the season, obviously had a pretty pivotal role in that Week 18 win in Los Angeles. He's a guy who I watched quite a bit at Michigan State, never really lived up to the lofty expectations I think that he may have had coming out, but he still is a guy who's appeared in 87 NFL games. He's a veteran who provides a quality amount of depth. Again, has that wealth of experience being in the league for that long. I don't really see him immediately slotting into a starting role, but maybe he is somebody that surprises and works his way up to that during camp. But you get just a viable body there that can be, again, somebody to help fill that void with K'Wan Williams now in Denver. You lose a pretty significant piece in the slot there. So I think Dennard's a very interesting signing. That's one to keep an eye on going forward. The next signing was one that I was extremely excited about. I am a big Jeff Wilson guy. I've been a big Jeff Wilson guy for a few years. I think that he is the most underrated back on the team and one of the most underrated players in general on the team. So I was really excited to see the 49ers bring him back. If any of you guys follow me on Twitter, you saw probably I mentioned that I thought the 49ers would go out and try to get a veteran to add to that running back room. And of all the options available, I wanted Jeff Wilson first and foremost because he not only is a very good player, in my opinion, but he also is familiar with the system, familiar with the scheme, familiar with the locker room. So I'm very excited to see what a healthy Jeff Wilson can do coming back. I think that he's a guy who sometimes I really get very general with my player evaluations and ignore the X's and O's and all the other stuff. Jeff Wilson, the way I described him, is just he's a like touchdown magnet. Like the guy just has a knack for finding the goal line. And I think players like that are extremely valuable when they're coming at that price point. He is somebody that has shown he can shoulder a pretty significant workload when he's healthy. And I just think that, well, I wouldn't necessarily say he's like a power back. He runs angry and he runs with a lot of power behind him. So I think he does have a lot of that elusiveness, the ability to run that outside zone, but he also runs north to south really well. So I'm really excited to see what Jeff Wilson can do. I thought that was a really good signing, and I'm happy to see the 49ers doing that. The other one we have to talk about, unfortunately, real quick, and again, I'm going to get to Q&A and let you guys talk a little bit. This is going to be much shorter than last night as well. For anybody who wasn't here, we did 5 hours last night. I do not have that in me today. I have things I have to do, so I'm going to try to keep it shorter. So we do have to talk about this, unfortunately. Deebo Samuel, the whole Jets thing. I mean, what are we doing here, man? We are sitting here in the middle of March, end of March, waiting for the draft, and it feels like it was just a slow news day, and all of a sudden, there's these rumors that the 49ers might trade Deebo Samuel. Is Deebo Samuel on the move? I would be shocked if the 49ers moved off for Deebo Samuel at this point in time. Like, he is so pivotal to what they do. He is such an important piece for that team. So the way I look at this is it's pretty much you have a guy in Robert Saleh, you have Mike LaFleur, you have these guys in New York with the Jets who saw Deebo Samuel every day, who are very aware of not only how good Deebo Samuel the player is, but how good Deebo Samuel the teammate is, how valuable a player like that is in the locker room, and how much it would help their young team and their second-year quarterback in Zach Wilson. And I imagine Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur are sitting there like, hey, we would love to have Deebo Samuel. Sure, let's keep an eye on it. There's a lot of guys that are moving because of contract issues. Maybe the 49ers move Deebo Samuel because of these issues too. I don't think it's going to happen. And the report was very clear in stating that there was no actual substance to the fact that the 49ers might want to move on or might want to move him or trade him or any of that. It was just that the Jets are watching him. And they mentioned also that the Jets were watching DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown and monitoring their situations. And, the common denominator between the three is really that, one, they all have the same agent, which is interesting. But the other thing is that they all are guys that are entering the last year of their rookie deals that were all drafted the same year, and none of them have fifth-year options. So I think it's just a point now where the Jets are like, hey, if one of these guys isn't content or they can't come to terms with the team they're with now, we would love to come in and make a move and bring them in. But I would be shocked to see any of the three move because of how important each of the three are to their respective teams. So again, it's something to talk about. I'm writing something about it today. I think, I'll touch on real quick. I think it's a terrible idea for the 49ers to even entertain trading it. And I've seen all kinds of takes. Like a lot of times, people will sit here and probably be like, well, of course you don't trade Deebo Samuel. Like that's obvious. Why would you do that? You'd be shocked. I would like to direct you to my Twitter mentions if you feel that way, because I've heard things from he's injury prone. He only has 1 year of production. You don't pay receivers this much. Like there's a bunch of people who are advocating for moving him. I don't really think that's a good idea. I think that when you look at somebody like Deebo Samuel, who's a proven commodity, the odds of you replicating a player with even like a fraction of the impact and success that Samuel's had with the draft picks you get back is very minimal. So to me, it's not a great idea just to even like go down that road and think about it. Like, sure, we can always discuss it. And it's not like anybody who like has an idea that it might be a good idea is just wrong. It just doesn't really make sense for the 49ers at this point in time. Like we watched Deebo Samuel just reel off a historic season. He's entering year 4. His best football is arguably ahead of him, which is phenomenal. Like it's incredible to think about when you consider what we just saw from him this past season. So I'm firmly of the, not only don't trade Deebo Samuel, but like, it's just not even worth like going down the road of, well, what if you get this or what if you get that? Like, to me, you draft these guys with the hope that your biggest problem is that you're going to have to pay them a second contract, right? Like you'd hope when you're drafting a guy like, wow, the biggest headache I'm going to get from this is he's so good that I'm going to have to pay him a second time around and I'm going to have to negotiate a little bit harder because this guy played so good. And the 49ers have had that problem pretty frequently. They had it with George Kittle. They had it with Fred Warner. They had it with Armstead. They had it with Buckner. And unfortunately, that didn't go the way a lot of people would have hoped. But they've repeatedly had this pattern of drafting their own players, keeping them, and then finding a way to retain them. So I imagine Deebo Samuel is going to fit into that mold too. So I know it's been talked about a bunch today. I don't want to talk about it too much. The other one I wanted to touch on real quick is a Nick Bosa extension possibly happening this offseason. I think this is where things get really interesting because Nick Bosa, I think, is going to set the record for the highest contract ever given out to a non-quarterback in the NFL. I think he's going to shatter the previous record for guaranteed money. His brother, Joey Bosa, has the highest practical guarantees of any edge rusher at $102 million, and he's at $27 million a year in average annual value. I don't really care about the average annual value too much because generally the guarantees are what's going to really matter. Rarely do you see guys play through a non-rookie contract all the way through and see it through. So the average annual value doesn't really mean much to me. But the $78 million guaranteed at signing was the second highest ever that was given to Joey Bosa. The highest guaranteed at signing is $80 million to TJ Watt. And pretty much the difference is like there's practical guarantees, which mean if you're still on the roster down the road, if you're, workout bonuses, roster bonuses, all that stuff. There's still variables to where you might get that money, you might not. But at signing, like guaranteed, like you're getting that money from that team the second you ink that contract. So the guaranteed at signing record right now is TJ Watt's $80 million from last year. I think it's very possible that Nick Bosa is going to eclipse $100 million guaranteed at signing, meaning that when he inks that contract, he's getting $100 million from the 49ers no matter what. Again, I'm not a cap expert. I'm not somebody who can sit here and claim to have everything figured out in that aspect. But I just think based on the player, the way the cap's set to boom, the fact that he's just entering his prime, just like Deebo Samuel, we haven't even seen the best of Nick Bosa yet, most likely. I think that $100 million extension is certainly in play, which is why I think it might take a little bit longer to sort it out. That's kind of the issue the 49ers front office is facing right now. Is they have two players who are extremely talented and extremely unique in the sense that like Deebo Samuel is again doing things that are historic that we've never seen a player do before at that position. How do you equate value to that? Where are you comparing the contracts to in the past? Who's this getting, compared up against when they're in these negotiations? And then with Nick Bosa, it's like, yes, there's been really talented young edge rushers. Yes, there's been, players like his own brother obviously is up there for those highest paid edge rushers. But when's the last time we saw an edge rusher come in and immediately from day one have the impact Nick Bosa's had? And I just think that it's so clear how much value he has to the team. So That's another thing I wanted to touch on real quick. And then I figure for the next, I don't know, I'm trying to keep this one short. So if you guys want to do just, if you have some questions or stuff like that, I'd love to answer any and, get into it real quick. Again, I don't think I have 5 hours in me today, but I'll try to answer as many as possible if there's stuff going on. I know Jamal had a question, so I'll get to that real quick. I think it will be close. I think it'll be like 43, 44 maybe, because I don't see, like, unless the 49ers sign him to like a 4 or 5 year deal, I think they'd be better off signing him to a 3-year deal, 4-year deal with a little bit higher average annual value and a higher guaranteed. I would say no as of right now, but it's very interesting to think about because, again, Deebo's a guy that we haven't seen a player like this. Like, how do you equate value to a wide back? We've never seen a guy play the receiver position who also has ran for 300-plus yards. So it is really hard to speculate, Jamal. I wish I could give you a better answer than that. I would say, based on the way they structure their contracts, that I would be – part of me wants to say I'd be surprised, but actually the more and more I think about it with the cap spiking, like maybe it's not all that crazy. And maybe they sign him to a shorter deal, like a 3-year deal or something like that, but he does get 55, 56 million. So you know what? I'm actually going to say yes. I do think Deebo tops it based on the way the cap's going. Because it makes more sense to me to pay a guy like Deebo higher guaranteed money at signing and be less tied down in the long run with the way that they structure their contracts. So that would probably be my guess with that. Other than that, it's really just speculation at this point because, again, there hasn't been a player really like Deebo Samuel that we can equate to. I don't think that he's going to I don't think they're going to go into negotiations comparing him to DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Adams. I think they're very different players, even though I think Deebo Samuel is extremely talented and deserves a ton of money, and he deserves to get paid what the 49ers are probably going to ultimately end up paying him. But it's just like, it's a really hard thing. So that's a really good question. If anybody else has questions about anything else too, again, I appreciate everybody who's coming by. I'm trying to keep this one a little bit quicker and probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes or something like that. So if you do have any questions, please help me out. Otherwise, I will have to go to Lalo wants to talk about the best taco meats. And I am from Redwood City, California. Any of you guys from the Bay Area know Redwood City doesn't play when it comes to tacos and Mexican food. So we can always jump to that. It doesn't have to be just football stuff, but I'm happy to answer any questions if I can for that. Again, this stream was kind of put together on a whim here. I know it's late for people on the East Coast and whatnot. So I guess this counts as a question. We could talk about it now. I saw it for like 2 minutes before I came on here to do this, and apparently it wasn't staged. I believe, yes, Justin, as far as I know, he did hit Chris Rock, and it seemed like it was not planned or structured. So I'm very interested later on to see what happened with that. But I'm not a big Oscars guy. I don't really watch that stuff, to be honest, but I did see it all over Twitter again before I hopped on here. So I know it's not football related, but I do think it was pretty interesting that Will Smith pretty much hit Chris Rock at the Oscars and seemed to be very like I could hear, like it sounded like one of those like fake like WWE hits where you like hear the like clap of somebody like connecting with another person, but it didn't seem like that was something that they like set up or staged. So yeah, I thought it was super interesting, and I thought it was super out of the blue, out of left field. I didn't expect it at all. So I don't know if anybody else saw it, or if anybody who's watching in the comments wants to say, you know, what they think's happening or what happened with that. Let me know. I don't keep up with that, to be honest. I don't know. But when I saw Will Smith hit Chris Rock, I was like, well, that's a headline I didn't expect to see. I mean, it might end up evolving into this, because I'll be honest, I'm so tapped out. I did a couple videos on other players and other stuff earlier today. I did one on Deebo, so I don't want to get too repetitive. So we might have to fall back on that wall. I do see a question about Hyder. Chardall, really quick, has a great point. Yeah, Chris Rock took that like a champ. He just kind of took there and was like, well, like, damn, dude, you just you got me. Hendricks, I try to tell you, man, like, put aside a little bit. Those Cinderellas only go so long. It can be really hard. I know it's tough, but my thoughts are with you. I hope you win it back somehow in the Final Four. Maybe UNC goes on this run. You could bet UNC money line But I will go back to football really quick because I know that's what a lot of people came here for. So I'm going to try to answer all the football questions I have. And again, if you're just coming in or you're joining or somebody else is popping in, if you have any questions that I can ask or something that you want to talk about that I can maybe share my thoughts on, if you want to give a take on something, I could, give you my view on something, please add it to the chat. Again, I'm just trying to get into a regular schedule, doing these streams kind of every day, trying to get more into the algorithm, get the channel up and going as I've gotten it going in the last few days. So thank you to everybody who's here watching. I appreciate all of you guys. And please, if it doesn't matter what it's a question about, if you have a question about anything, please send it to the chat. We spent 3 hours last night talking about like Twix bars and cereal, and it was actually a pretty good time, not gonna lie. So nothing's really off limits. I'm happy to talk about whatever. So let's talk about Kerry Hyder. Kerry Hyder is a guy that I think his best trait is his motor, right? So when we talk about, pass rushing moves, bend, hand technique, get off, like all those things are great. But I think a lot of times just having the willpower to fight through and give 110% on every play is something that gets overlooked a lot because believe it or not, there's a lot of guys that aren't doing that play in, play out every single day, every single week. And Kerry Hyder is a guy to me that a lot of the success he had with the 49ers the first time in 2020 when he led the team in sacks with 8, I believe, if I recall correctly. I'm sorry, that's off the top of my head. A lot of those sacks were a result of him just having a relentless motor and not giving up on plays. And when the coverage was there on the back end, because a lot of times it'll be labeled as a coverage sack, which, the defensive backs deserve credit too. But at the same time, the coverage sacks can't happen without the offensive players the defensive line players fully buying in and repeatedly going at that offensive line. So to me, Kerry Hyder's a guy, obviously a Chris Kocurek guy. They were together in Detroit. They were together that year in San Francisco. He's somebody that you're going to get maximum effort from on every play. And I think that goes a long way because that kind of energy is infectious. And when you get a guy doing that and you get a coach like Chris Kocurek, I talked about it on stream a bit last night. I got to talk with Hall of Fame defensive lineman John Randall, and he and Kocurek know each other pretty well. They both went to the same college at different times, but there's, alumni from the same college. And he had very high praise for Chris Kocurek. And he's pretty much anytime you got that guy in your defensive line coaching these guys, you're going to get it. Like you're going to get, they're going to bring it, I think was the word he used. Sorry. And I think Kerry Hyder's a guy where you really get that relentless pursuit, that high motor over and over and over again. So I like the signing for what it was. Like it's a really low risk deal. And honestly, if they have 10 or 11 other linemen that are better than Hyder, they can kind of cut him in the preseason. It's not going to be a big deal. It's not like they gave him a bunch of guaranteed money. So I like the signing a lot. I hope that answers it enough for you, Lalo. Yeah, dude, that's pretty crazy. Like he literally just smacked him at the Oscars. I can't wait to see what really happened with all this later. Let's see. So this is my take on it, right? I think that Deebo Samuel is a much better receiver than he's given credit for. I think so much of this, like this is a weird narrative that I get seen thrown around a lot, right? I see this narrative that Deebo Samuel is only good because he's really good at running like drift over the middle. He's good at running these crossing routes, these quick slants, the screens and all this stuff. And he's only looking this good and getting this kind of production because Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't push the ball downfield or won't throw deep and outside the numbers. I've seen some variation of this take a bunch of times, and this is kind of my thing, is it's like, well, if Deebo Samuel is giving you this kind of production with a quarterback that's that limited, could you imagine if the quarterback play improves, how much better he's going to get? And like when I watch Deebo Samuel, I still see a complete receiver. I see a guy who could be a viable deep threat. I see a guy who has a very nice release package and is winning at the line of scrimmage. His get off is really good. His route tree is really good. So I think that having Deebo as your number one, you could do a lot worse than that. Like, I think that, yeah, like, sure, I don't think Deebo Samuel is going to get that 10 carries a game week in and week out that he got to close last season. There's no way it's sustainable, in my opinion, to do that over and over again. And you shouldn't have to do that over and over again. But it's just Deebo Samuel being a guy that's going to command targets in the middle of the field, and a guy that, again, I think Deebo's speed is really underrated because we talk about his speed with his ball, like the ball in his hands, but his speed as a route runner as well. Like, he hasn't really been able to showcase the full arsenal of his abilities, in my opinion. So, to be honest, Luke, I think that the 49ers, if they break the bank and they pay Deebo, there's a reason why, and I think he's worth that money. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's a really special player. Like, Was it the game against Green Bay? I think I'm forgetting if it was the Sunday night game or the NFC Championship game. But there was a play where he caught a slant over the middle and he just bowled over the safety for the Packers. I think it was Darnell Savage. My apologies if it was Amos. I forget which one it was. But like having a guy like that can get the ball in space and is just like a nightmare for defenses to tackle, to me, like that's extremely valuable. Like, hey, if you catch the ball 3 yards past the line of scrimmage and you pick up 15 after the catch, to me, that's just as valuable as somebody who's route running savvy and hands and ability to work downfield is netting a 15-yard catch and maybe they pick up 2 or 3. Like you're netting the same amount of yardage. I don't care how you get to that point. And I think Deebo Samuel has shown that he's a guy that not only can generate those yards after the catch, be an absolute nightmare again for defenses to have to tackle, but I think you'll see he has a lot more in his bag than I think he's given credit for. And I think he is somebody who can win downfield consistently and do a lot of the things that he unfortunately doesn't get the recognition for at this point in time. Like when I go back and watch film, it's not just Deebo. There's a lot of plays where I'm watching these guys that are running alert routes or they're running clear outs or they're running something where it may not be in the immediate progression, but it's something to keep an eye on. And for whatever reason, the shots weren't being taken downfield to those guys. So I'd be very interested to see if Trey Lance supports that. It increases that. I think Deebo Samuel does have elite separation in route running, and I think Ayuk is really good too. I think Ayuk is going to take a step forward. But again, I think Deebo Samuel is somebody that gets written off as this like wide back gadget player, like have to hand him the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Like he does all of that on top of being a guy that I believe has the elite separation and route running too. So I'm really interested to see what the market bears for Deebo Samuel and how he gets paid, because if I'm his agent and I'm his representation, and I'm somebody that has access to all the game film the 49ers have and defensive staff have, like I see the full picture that's there, and it'd be really hard to not compensate Deebo like somebody who's capable of doing those things. So I hope that that answers that sufficiently enough. Yeah, I like that a lot, Jamal. I think that at this point, like he's not going to break the bank. I don't think anybody's going to throw a bunch of guaranteed money at him. Yes, he has injury history, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's shown when he's healthy, he can still be a really high impact player, and it's really hard to find good corners. And hey, maybe this year, you get that healthy Verrett, you get that guy that's able to stay on the field, even if it's for 10, 12 games, maybe he misses a handful of them. Having him in the building at the rate he's probably going to get brought in on, I would be thrilled with that. And I think especially when you consider the fact that right now, like, hey, Travaris Ward and Emmanuel Mosley are really good, but beyond that, you have guys like Dante Johnson and Dennard, who I think are good depth pieces, who are good veterans, but, does one of them slot into the slot corner role? Excuse me. How are they going to factor in to the team's, starting plans? And then you have Ambry Thomas and Deommodore Lenoir, and you really don't know what you have in those guys yet. I don't think anybody can feel confident in that. I'm sure the 49ers are encouraged with the progress with Ambry Thomas. So, like, for example, during training camp, I thought it was very evident that Ambry Thomas was a player who had taken quite a bit of time off of football and was readjusting to the game speed and having to acclimate to playing at the NFL level. But even though there may have been times where there were some speed bumps towards the backstretch of the season when he was playing, it was still a big step forward from where he looked a few months earlier. So if you take into the context that, he looked a certain way in August, but that was a vast improvement from August to November to the playoffs in January, maybe they do feel confident enough in Ambry Thomas. But I think Jason Verrett, again, like when he's healthy, he's proven he's one of the better corners in the league. So I'm all for bringing him back because, again, I don't think it's going to cost too much money to do so. And I think cornerback, edge, and receiver are the 3 positions that I would load up on every single year, have an abundance. Worst case, you might have to move a guy because you have too many, and you're going to get back pretty significant returns for all 3 of those positions if you do end up having to do that. So I think that I think that's the move to do with Verrett, is bring him back, but just on like a team friendly deal. Trauma asks, what do you think of the NFL into a soft cap like the NBA? Yeah, I mean, so this is hard because I like the thought process, first of all, Jerome. I think that's a really interesting idea, and I do think that there is something to be said for rewarding teams for drafting and developing their own players. But I also, like, when I hear people talk about changing, like, the draft process, adding, like, a lottery, to me, the NFL is so good for as many faults as they may have. The NFL has been so good at parity and having every year. Like the Bengals went from a team that was picking, they had their number one overall pick in the draft starting in 2020 that they just picked number one overall after 2-14 season. And then in 2022, they're in the Super Bowl, almost winning it. Like the 49ers go off a 4-12 season and they're in the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl in the fourth quarter of the next year. Like I think that the NFL just has a really good product in place when it comes to the draft order, when it comes to the salary cap, when it comes to their collective bargaining and stuff. I think that it's just anything that might alter the product for me is something I would be hesitant to do because I'm a firm believer in if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think the NFL by far more so than the NBA, MLB, NHL, all things that I love. I got my Sharks shirt on here now. The NFL is light years ahead of them when it comes to league parity and having every team feel like, hey, if they all it takes is a good offseason or two and your team can be right back in it competing. So it's an interesting idea, Jerome. I definitely like the thought. I'm just of the mindset like until the NFL has some, cast some doubt where I think they're not doing things properly or I think that they could change. I'm fine with them keeping things the way it is because I think there's a really good proven recipe for success there. But that's a really good question, Jerome. And Luke's talking about the Hyder signing. That's a great idea. Jerome's on the same page as well. I think Kyle Hamilton's a good player, Justin. So it's so funny. Like people talk about 40 times a bunch, right? Like people, if a guy runs a slow 40, everybody's like, "Oh, he's too slow. We can't draft him." I know. I was in a Twitter space where got pretty heated talking about that earlier this week. Kyle Hamilton did not look good running his 40 at all. Do I think it's going to affect his draft stock in the slightest? No, absolutely not. He's still probably going to be a top 10 pick. Maybe even a top 5 pick. I think it was the Clemson game. Was it last year or 2020? The first time I watched Kyle Hamilton play really like an extensive a lot was a game they played against Clemson. I'm sorry for not remembering what year it was, but I remember sitting here and I'm like, wow, this guy, like he looks like a stud. And the more and more I kept seeing him rise up draft boards and getting talked about as his top 5 pick, like he's a guy to me where again, like it's all on tape. I don't care about the testing numbers at all because I've seen what this guy is able to do on the field. I've seen the closing speed, the IQ, the ball hawking ability. I think he's a really good player. I think it's dangerous drafting safeties that high. You have to really be confident. Like the last time I saw a safety that I really, really wanted, like high in the draft, was Derwin James, and I think that's something you could live with because he ended up being a really good player. But it's hard, man. I could end up sounding really stupid saying this, but I don't know that I see Kyle Hamilton ending up being this like all-pro level player. I think he could be a good starter in the NFL, absolutely. So it kind of is like if a team's comfortable taking the high floor, great. I just don't see the game-breaking ability as this like all-pro level player that I've kind of heard about. And again, I've been wrong with evaluations before. I will be again. Maybe this is one I miss on, but I'm just not as high, I think, on him as a lot of other people. I still think he will be a top 5, top 7 pick, though. Lala is interesting. We talked about it a little bit last night. I think Ayuk has more of the like traditional traits that teams may look for in their like primary receiver. But again, I think Deebo has a better release package, and his release off the line of scrimmage is so underrated. He's such a good player, man. This is again where like when I see these people like, oh, trade Deebo Samuel for 2 first-round picks and draft another receiver to replace him. Do you know how hard it is to find a receiver that could do what Deebo Samuel does and have that release package, have the ability to run through defenders' faces, carry the ball out of the backfield a couple times a game? Like, He's a phenomenal player. I've had more joy watching Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams over the last couple seasons than almost any other player in the league. And I'm not just like a 49ers guy. I love watching like players around the league and the sport of football in general. And those two make watching and covering the sport so fun. And I think he gets slept on a ton. And Chardall makes a great point. It was tough for him to be because the skill sets kind of. I think what Jimmy as a quarterback, he highlighted a lot of Deebo's strengths working over the middle of the field. A lot of those connections and a lot of those timing-based throws in that offense really did help a guy like Deebo. But I also think that we didn't get to see the full spectrum because of it. So I think that's a great point, Chardall. Thank you again for coming by. You'd always appreciate it. Our guy Jesus just saw the Will Smith hit. If you guys haven't seen it, go on Twitter or wherever. Just look it up on Google. It's probably up by now. It definitely seemed like some like WWE stuff, but it was at the Oscars. Deebo Samuel does run a mean swirl route. I I totally understand, Jerome. So I grew up, just real quick, you guys, my backstory. I'm from the Bay Area. I'm born and raised here. My dad had season tickets at Candlestick for a long time. I grew up going to games with him. I'm 26 years old. So the majority of time that I've been, watching 49ers football, the Yorks have owned the team, and my dad would tell me all the time how great Eddie D was and how beloved Eddie D was. And I remember so many of those days at Candlestick when I was a kid, even when they were terrible teams, and they'd bring Eddie out for a halftime ceremony or something, and seeing just the wide range of people, older people, younger people, all backgrounds of people that are 49ers fans, just going crazy cheering and this like beloved energy around Eddie D. So I definitely can empathize with that. I obviously wasn't alive to see it all happen and go down, but I was told every Sunday as a kid how great Eddie D was and how much the players loved him and the fans loved him and how fantastic he was. So I can imagine it's tough to go from that to how it is now. And especially when you had a guy like Eddie who was willing to not only invest in the salary cap, but invest in the facilities, the organization, and really make the 49ers into this top flight brand that they are today. So I can totally relate to that. Yeah, I think that Deebo is a guy that he always, like, Kyle's a yak guy. Like, his offense is based on getting guys the ball in space and, working based off of that. So I do think that Deebo was a guy that I heard a lot about, and I'm sure a lot of people who follow the team have heard a lot about when, the 49ers were coaching him up at the Senior Bowl that year, and there was a lot of buzz that the Niners liked him a lot. It made a ton of sense. I admittedly was an A.J. Brown guy. That's no disrespect to Deebo Samuel. I think they're both phenomenal players. I just personally, based on my evaluations, I thought A.J. Brown was going to have the higher potential, but I think the 49ers sleep fine at night knowing they took Deebo Samuel. He's a fantastic player, and he had a better season last year than A.J. Brown. So I do think that there's a lot of reasons why Kyle liked him, but I think that the yak ability and that physicality, and again, that he runs through people's faces, man. Like, this isn't just like, he breaks a couple of tackles here or there. He literally broke, was it A.J. Terrell? I think it was A.J. Terrell. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but that Falcons game, he literally broke off pieces of a defender's face mask by literally running through their face. Like, I'm using that as like a, whatever the word, like an analogy or whatever, but like, he literally ran through a dude's face and broke his face mask. So I think that that's something that's like, not every NFL receiver is going to give you that. There's a lot of guys that shy away from contact. Deebo Samuel not only doesn't shy away from it, he welcomes it. Let's see what else. Yeah, Niners aren't getting Kyle Hamilton. It's not going to happen, but it'll be fun to watch. I know there's a lot of people who follow draft stuff, even if it's not about just the 49ers. So it'll be fun to watch that. Was that this year, Jamal? Was that interception? That was this year, I think. Yeah, that was this year where the Florida State almost upset them, right? If I remember correctly, because I remember watching that game as well, and I was like, there is no chance that Notre Dame is and that's another thing. I'm sorry if there's Notre Dame fans in the chat. I apologize, but every year this team ends up like creeping into like the college football playoff discussion. They play a bunch of nobodies, and then they end up playing a big time school, and they get exposed. And I don't know about you guys, I'm sick of watching it. I don't care to see it. If you're too good to be in a conference, you want to have this independent cupcake schedule, that's fine. But don't come crying when you don't get into the playoff. And a lot of it, unfortunately, has to do, it's a money-driven thing. I get it. Notre Dame's a big brand. It's good for college football to have Notre Dame in the discussion, have them in the playoff. But they get exposed every time. We do this. I'm getting sick of it, man. It's the same thing over and over again. I don't know how other people feel about it, and I don't need to get off on a tangent here, but I hate seeing it. It happens every season, and I'm just tired of it, man. So maybe one year they'll finally prove me wrong, and they'll win one of these big games against big-time competition, but it feels, again, like they beat up on these small independent schools, and they beat up on teams like Air Force or like BYU or something like that. And even BYU's a good team. I don't think Notre Dame really can sit here and beat up on teams like that anymore. Like, they just have this, like, they're very fraudulent to me, and it happens year after year. So I apologize if any of you guys are Notre Dame fans. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. And it's kind of like Nebraska hasn't been good for however many years. Notre Dame really hasn't deserved all the notoriety they've gotten. Like, this isn't the 90s anymore. I think that there is a clear gap in talent from them to these other blue blood programs like Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama. And I think we're going to see USC have a big resurgence with Lincoln Riley. So just throwing that out there. I'm tired of the whole Notre Dame getting overrated every year. Jamal doesn't like Dylan Petrie, or he's not as high on him. Sorry, I don't say he doesn't like him. He's not as high as him on a lot of people. I haven't gotten to watch him too much yet. For anybody who knows me, I'm a big Leon O'Neal guy. That's the guy that I am the highest on currently. So I still have to watch Petrie. Haven't had a chance yet. I do like Nick Cross, too. Nick Cross is good. Kirby Joseph's another guy I have to watch. The 49ers need to get a safety. Even if they get a veteran in this year, they need to get somebody young at that position that they can put next to Jimmy Ward. So I'll be really interested to see how that goes. Yeah, and I agree, Luke. We haven't seen the best from him, and yeah, he's a lot like Kittle. That's why they're the Yak Bros. I don't know if you guys saw some guy, and he didn't mean to do it at all. He didn't know. He like posted Waddle and Tyreek Hill and was like, Yak Bros. And he got I went to the comments because I'm like, I bet you 49ers fans are in here giving this guy a hard time. And sure enough, I go in the comments, and it's just 49er fan after 49er fan, like, sorry, pal, like, take a number, like this nickname's taken. It's been taken for 2 years. No Yak Bros in Miami. The Yak Bros are in San Francisco. So I thought that was pretty cool. Definitely Deebo. No disrespect to my guy Jason. My guy Jason is fantastic. Jason's we played basketball together. I mean, I'm sure you guys could assume this because he's like 7 feet tall. Very good hooper, natural hooper, has a solid jump shot, silky smooth jump shot. Quarterback, I'm leaning past Sweeney. If I need a 2-minute drive, no offense, Jason, I'm leaning past Sweeney. So I'm gonna go Deebo on that one, Tony. Thank you. That's a really good question. But if I need a bucket in crunch time and it's my team's down 1 with the ball, I'll take a Ponte. But football quarterback, nah, man. I'm sorry. I'm going past Sweeney. Khalil Shakir. I haven't gotten to watch him too much yet, but I think that he is somebody from what I have seen is very good. I have to watch it in its entirety. I was unfortunately doing a bunch of stuff earlier, but I know Javi Vega interviewed Khalil earlier today on 4th and Gold podcast. So if you guys have time, definitely go and check that out. If you haven't already subscribed to Javi's channel, he does great stuff all the time. Go check that out. You're going to want to see that interview. It's probably very insightful and can give you more insight than what I think. But I think that he would be a great receiving threat in this offense. And I think he's somebody who might be there at 93 and who might be there at 105 maybe. And that's where I feel like the 49ers are really in a sweet spot to take a receiver, is in one of those 2 spots. I don't know that they do it at 61. It would have to be a really good receiving option still there at 61 for them to do it. So those are kind of my quick Cliff Note thoughts. Yes, Deebo, and he still is. If you go back and you look at some of these catches Deebo's made, like that's the biggest thing to me this year, is that he really made a stamp this year that he is a guy that is going to win contested balls. And if you throw 50-50 balls his way, he's going to come down with them more often than not. So thank you for pointing that out, SS Green. That's a very good point. Let's see. I've watched after that. Yeah, Tony's leading this Ezra Gray hive. If Ezra Gray ends up going to the 49ers, you guys might have to single-handedly thank Tony, and give him his flowers and his respect, because he's been driving this train harder than anybody that I've seen. It sounds like, yes, it was AJ Terrell, so my brain didn't fail me too badly on that. Will Smith won an award. What do you know what he won, Shard? All? Please let me know. I still can't believe he slapped Chris Rock in 2022 as well. Like, could you imagine hearing that? Like, 20 years ago when both those guys were still like such a huge deal, especially when Chris Rock was like on his like all-time hot streak, that like, hey dude, 20 years from now, Will Smith is going to slap you at the Oscars. Like, I think that's so funny. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm pushing so hard. Thank you so much, dude. I'm grinding, man. I'm all about getting it out the mud and earning it. And this hopefully is the beginning of something really fun. I continue to grow the channel. I've been doing this. I started it on like Tuesday last week, I think, or Wednesday was the first stream. And last time I checked, we were at like 315 subscribers. So I think that's awesome. In a few days, I've gotten up to that number, and it wouldn't be possible without you guys watching, liking the videos, sharing, telling people. So I'm so grateful for all you guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Riley, I agree. I think it has to be. I think it's going to be edge, and maybe they go O-line if they don't see somebody they really like there. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't see how it can be a receiver there. It'd be really hard to justify. You'd have to get a really good receiver at 61 for them to justify it. And I feel like a lot of those guys are going to be off the board by then. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, Luke. Yeah, no, it was a good one. For those of you who haven't seen it, look it up on Google. Look up the Deebo Samuel mouthpiece. Yeah, because he knocked a piece of the helmet off and he knocked his mouthpiece out, if I remember correctly. And I remember watching it live, and you could see it on the broadcast, fly in the air. And I'm like, oh, dude, holy crap! Like, he just knocked his face mask off, dude. So let's see. Will O'Neal be there at 61 around 3? From what I'm seeing, yes. It's so hard to tell because projecting draft stuff is so hard. Every year it goes differently than we expect it to. I think he might even be there at round 3. I think there's a chance he could even be there in round 4. If teams are scared off by, he ran a 4.63 40, which again, I don't think is a big deal. I've watched the tape, and if I can sit there and break down tape and see that he still has the pursuit angles, the game speed, the recognition, all those things that are important at that position, I doubt scouts and GMs are missing it, but maybe they just value other players in other areas. I think if the 49ers get him at any point, it'd be a good pick. But if they're able to get him at anywhere in that that compensatory 3rd round pick range, 4th round pick range, I think it's an absolute steal. So yeah, Lalo, I would guess he's there, but I just don't know. Maybe some team really has him coveted high on their draft board. But if I had to guess, I would say, yeah, he'll still be there. My bad, guys. This is the second time this has happened. I don't know why. This happened to Rich 3 times yesterday, too. It depends who the rookie is, D. I like Ronnie Harrison a lot. He's a guy that I think – so this is my ideal scenario. You bring in a guy like Ronnie Harrison on a cheap 1-year deal, and then you also have a player – that you draft like a Leon O'Neal or Nick Cross or one of these guys that maybe you can have sit for a little bit, and then maybe they supplant Harrison for that job. You can run out 3 safety sets. I do think the 49ers like Talanoa Hufanga a lot too. So I personally don't see him slotting into that starting role. I do think that they are comfortable with him running a lot of those 3 safety looks. I know they like Odom a lot. They've made it very clear that they plan to use Odom as more than just a special teams guy. So it'll be interesting to see if they value bringing in a veteran guy there as much as I currently do. Because I think you could also make the case that if they do draft a guy, they have some veterans in place and they don't need to sink further resources in. It's not an absolute necessity. I think it's a good idea personally, but it's not 100%. If they don't do this, it's going to be the thing that sinks their season or anything like that. So it's a good question though. I'm interested to see what happens with Justin School, honestly. Jalen Moore, I think he had some growing pains and stuff, but I think he's I still think that he profiles better as a guard, and I could be way off with my assessment there. I just think from what I saw, I think he'd be better as a guard. But they saw something there that they liked him when they drafted him, right? I think it's telling that they had him and Compton kind of playing musical chairs, and then they rode with Tom Compton for the rest of the season. But Compton's also a veteran with a tremendous amount of experience. Jalen Moore was a first-year player, so maybe they do. But I think that Justin School is a player to watch. I think Colton McKivitz is a player to watch too. They might have that swing tackle position already in-house, which is something to definitely keep an eye on. So I would say I don't see them really making that signing though either. I don't know who else is out there that really makes a ton of sense. They might get a really, really depth guy that a lot of fans are looking at and they're like, who the heck is this guy? I've never heard this name before. I could see a signing or two like that happening, but I don't think it's going to be a name that most people see. I know a lot of people really wanted Billy Turner, and I believe he just recently went to the Broncos. So I don't think it'll be a name like that where people see it and they're like, oh, okay. I know Billy Turner, that name, when you see you get the push notification on your phone, you're like, oh, I know who this guy is. But I'm sure there's going to be a couple veteran guys that they bring in. A third of the league is running an offense similar to what Kyle's running. So it makes sense that there's somebody out there if they need to bring in a depth piece. And, Coach had a great comment on the channel last night where he's saying that once camp comes around and some of these other teams have to cut some of their veteran guys as they're trimming rosters down, that's where he thinks the 49ers make a big move to supplement the depth in their offensive line unit. So that's a good question, though. That's definitely something to keep an eye on. Tony says, watch out for Michael Jefferson, Alabama State, but he transferred to Louisiana last year. Looks so smooth. All right, we'll have to keep an eye on it because these Louisiana guys are making some noise. Obviously, Elijah Mitchell, Max Mitchell this year. So these Louisiana guys are definitely making some noise. So I'll definitely keep an eye on that. Jerome with another good question. Chance of the Niners traded into the back end of the first, top end of the second. Wouldn't surprise me. I think it's more likely that they probably trade up. Maybe they're at 61. Maybe they can jump up to between 45 and 55 somewhere. I don't see them jumping all the way into the back end of the first. I think it's just going to cost a lot. But with the capital they have a little bit of wiggle room to play with. They have some picks they can move around. I personally don't think there's no chance they're going to keep 9 rookies on the roster this year. So you do have a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to giving up capital to move up a bit. So I could see them moving up to like 47, 48, something like that. Maybe if there's a guy they really like who's sliding or who's still on the board, but I would be surprised to see them go into the first, to be honest, Jerome. Lalo is not a big fan of Hufanga, so just for the record, if Talanoa comes in here and cooks you, dude, you did it to yourself. I'm sorry. I just have to throw that out there. Let's see. Do you think they'll be able to afford a brand new extension? Yeah, I mean, the 49ers are pretty good at budgeting for these sort of things, right? And eventually you can't pay everybody. Like, I do believe that. I'm a firm believer that like the cap is as pliable as it is also something that can't be completely ignored and manipulated to no end. But I think for a guy like Ayuk, if he's worthy of the extension that he's going to get, like if he's worthy of the extension that would price him out for the 49ers, they'll find a way to move money around to keep him. So I think they'll find a way to do it. I like Michael Thomas a lot. I know people say they call him like slant boy and stuff like that, and they throw that stuff around. I think he's a really good receiver. I think that he's another guy where he was doing a lot of the slant boy, and all those names that he gets called were a product of him playing with a quarterback as good as Drew Brees is that didn't really have the arm strength to consistently push the ball downfield. And I think Michael Thomas is another guy that can win downfield, that can run a complete route tree. And when he's healthy, he's one of the better receivers in football. So I'm a big Jameis Winston guy too. So I'm hoping that Michael Thomas and Jameis Winston own all the haters. They own all the doubters. I hope everybody that's out here making fun of Jameis Winston gets cooked. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that connection goes. That's a good question, Riley. And I think that the injury is my only concern. If there was no injury, I would have been content with Mike Mcglinchey being the long-term answer. I think he's a much better player than he gets credit for. I think that he is somebody that was improving. He looked like he added a little bit of weight. He looked better anchoring in pass protection this past year. He looked like a guy who belonged at the NFL level, in my opinion, as a guy that needs to be mentioned in the conversation for better players at the position. I know a lot of people fall back on him getting blown up on a couple pass protection reps here and there, but he's never been, above average pass blocker in my eyes. His calling card has always been how good he is run blocking and how good he is getting to the second level and getting out in space, which is so important when you're running the amount of outside zone that the 49ers do. So if he comes back to, 85, 90% of the player he was before, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see Mike Mcglinchey as a 49er for a long time. But if that injury doesn't heal properly and he's not the same player he was, it's a tough business, man. It's a tough sport to play. But they can't hinge their hopes long-term on a guy who's a shell of himself, if that's how it goes. So I wish a speedy and quick recovery to Mike. I hope his rehab's going really well. And again, I think when he is healthy, he's among the best players at his position. He's worthy of the 5th-year option. He's worthy of the extension that gets brought up. But again, I think the 49ers are at a spot where they're just going to kind of wait and see how he responds. Because just like you said, that injury is no joke. Those ruptured quad tendons, I'm pretty sure I saw that like half the guys that get that never really return to form. Like 50% of athletes who get those injuries never really regain full, their prior form. So that's got to be really, really tough. If he's available, I'd like to have him. It seems like the Browns have this just, if anybody was watching Jason Aponte and Andrew and Javi and those guys on his stream a little bit ago, I'm going to steal Andrew's word. It seems like they have a plethora of running backs there. So I would be shocked if they were to just move on. But I also think that it's smart to work the phones and see. The worst thing that can happen is Cleveland says no, he's not available. But I think he'd be great in the 49ers scheme. And I thought there were times last year where it's like, I think Nick Chubb's the second best running back in football behind Dalvin Cook. But there are times where I'm watching Darqeuze Johnson and I'm like, damn, like they have running. It's like the Cowboys with receivers. Like they have like their third guy could be the number 1 or 2 on a lot of teams. So check what's the worst thing that could happen is Andrew Berry says, no, he's not available. Sorry. And you're on to the next one. Like on this channel, shoot or shoot. And that's for everything, you guys. If you have any questions in life for me, for somebody else, if you're, questioning doing something, and again, as long as it's responsible, you're not hurting anybody else. But if you're thinking about doing something, just do it, man. The worst thing that can happen in life is somebody tells you no, and who cares? You're right back where you started when it happened. So hopefully I can sprinkle a little bit of motivation on there for you guys too. Send that you up text. All right. Like shoot or shoot, man. So maybe John Lynch does the same thing with Andrew Berry. But we'll see. I agree, Jerome. I think he's a really good special teams player. I think he's a solid depth piece. I also think he was a day 3 pick for a reason. I think that there are some things there that prevent him from being a starting guy. But I also think he works really hard at what he does. I saw him at training camp every single day, putting in the time, putting in the effort to get better. And I think, again, like that kind of energy is infectious and people want to have that around. But again, I don't see him as a starter. So I'm with you on that. Unfortunately not, Brandon. I think that right now it's pretty much like teams have made it clear they're uncomfortable moving on to Jimmy, whether it's the money, whether it's the shoulder injury, whether it's a combination of both. I don't think we're going to see something happen with Jimmy for quite some time, barring a catastrophic change with another team where if something happens to another starting quarterback somewhere and a team's like, oh, we can't punt this season. We need to get a guy in the building now. I think they're going to ultimately just end up sitting on it. And I was somebody that was like, oh, they'll get something for him. Somebody will trade something for him. I was wrong, man. I was completely off on that. I assumed that, the value would be there, being a starting quarterback, being somebody who, had a decent amount of success. I don't think that anybody's going to sit here and logically argue that he was the reason the 49ers were winning a bunch of games single-handedly, but he played a part in it. The quarterback has to do a bare minimum amount of things for a team to win a game, and the 49ers won a lot when he was there. So I was like, hey, somebody will take him. He's an upgrade over a lot of these other guys, but it didn't happen that way, and I was wrong. So to answer your question, no, I don't think it'll happen at these meetings. I think if anything, it'll happen closer to training camp, OTAs, stuff like that. So unfortunately, I don't think that it's something we see happen soon. I think they do. I think they might add a guy in the draft. This is going to tie into my next question next question from Tony a little bit. I'll give you a cheat and answer one. Like I'll give you one of the guys. This is Tony's question too, so you guys know. He's asking who my draft crushes are outside of Leon O'Neal. I like Hassan Haskins a lot out of Michigan. I think he'd be really good for this running back room. I think he would complement them very well. So I think the 49ers are in a position where they could add a guy on day 3, maybe even late day 2. Having Wilson, Hasty, Sermon, Mitchell, Juszczyk, like that's 5 already, but I still think they have room to add another that maybe pushes out another one of those guys. So I would say that they're happy with where they're at, but I don't think that they're content in the sense that they're going to stop continuing to try to add to that room. There's a few guys that I really like. I really like Cam Jorgens out of Nebraska. He's a guy who I'm very high on. I really like. So some of these guys, I'll be honest with you too. The 49ers probably won't have a chance of getting. Like I really like Boye Mafe. I don't think the 49ers are going to be able to get him. I really like Jaquan Brisker. I don't think the 49ers are going to be able to get him. I think he's just going to go before the 49ers have a chance to pick, unfortunately. But those are a couple guys that I really like. I really like Emerson, the cornerback out of Mississippi State. I really like Josh Paschal, the edge out of Kentucky. He's a guy who I think could fall into the 49ers range there at 61, especially with what he can do as a defender against the run. Because a lot of times we watch these edge guys and we focus so much on what they do rushing the quarterback, how they are as pass rushers. But man, this guy defending the run, there was a play against Georgia where he literally tackles James Cook with his own offensive lineman. He picks up the other team's offensive lineman and drives them into the running back and tackles the running back while still fully engaged with the opposing offensive lineman. So just absolute ridiculous strength from this guy. So I really like him a lot. He's a name to watch. I really like Trey McBride too. I know he's a pretty popular name as probably the tight end one in this class, but man, watching him at the combine and the way that this guy could move his hands, his balance, able to stay in bounds, like he's going to be a really good player. And I think about too, I'm like, man, if the 49ers had their own kind of Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski pairing with Kittle and another guy who's just a really transcendent talent, that'd be really cool. And I think that that's something that Kyle kind of played around with a bit when he brought in Jordan Reed. And, it didn't last long. And a lot of the time it was, Nick Mullins and Beathard throwing to them. But that had flashes of brilliance. If we think back to that 2020 season, there were times where those two tight end sets with Jordan Reed and George Kittle were giving defenses major headaches. And I just think that if you're able to still maximize on Kittle right now while he's in his prime, I still think he has a couple years left in his prime. And you add a player that's dynamic like that, like I would take Trey McBride at 61. I'm sure a lot of 49ers fans wouldn't be thrilled to see them take a tight end at 61, but if it's the right guy, I would love that. Because again, I think so much of what Trey Lance does that makes him so successful is he really is really good at operating an offense from under center. And a lot of what they ran at North Dakota State was this, they ran the ball 80% of the time. So it's not like Trey Lance is this guy that's coming in like out of an air raid offense where you're going to have to drop back and throw 40, 45 times a game. I still think he's a guy where you can operate the same offense, still, get those heavy sets, run the ball a lot. And if you get a guy that can block and catch the way McBride can, and you have George Kittle already, oh dude, like just me sitting here thinking about it, like I have like fireworks going off in my head right now thinking about that. So those are some guys. I'll get you a more extensive list. We're going to do some draft stuff coming up. I know I'm going to have Leon. I'm going to have Karan on as well. Those guys are killing it when it comes to prospect stuff. So I'll have them on if you guys want to, see some more specifically draft tailored stuff, and they'll be able to give a much better insight than I have. It's Winston Hive forever. This is a Jameis Winston channel. All right. This is a pro Jameis channel. If you don't like Jameis Winston, please keep it to yourself. I respect everybody's opinion, but there will be no Jameis slander tolerated in the chat. So please respect the Winston Hive. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, they tendered Darqeuze. Yeah. I probably wouldn't want to be eager to sign if I was him either. I think he's worth more than what that tender probably is. So it'll be interesting to watch how that's coming out. The man is here. I was just talking a little bit ago, Javi, about we had a Khalil Shakir question, and I was letting the folks know that you did a great pod with him, as well as UCLA offensive tackle Sean Ryan. Javi is humble and projecting his own greatness here because Javi did 2 podcasts today with 2 separate prospects. So please run over to Fourth and Gold when you guys have time. If you're not already subscribe, check it out. Listen, he did great work with both of them. And I love that he's showing love to Pac-12 guys. Everybody thinks we're a joke over here. Conference of Champions still, never giving up. So thank you, Javi, for all that you do. And thank you for coming by. I feel honored to have you over here. I know you were working overtime on Jason's channel as well. You missed. I dropped a nice plethora reference a little bit earlier too. So I hope Andrew comes around and gets to see this as well. But I have to shout out my guy, Javi, for all the great work that he has been doing. Let's see. I think the most valuable addition the 49ers can make is a speed guy. That's just a burner that's going to clear things out underneath and going to take the top off of defense. I think Ayuk and Deebo both are very fast in their own right, but they don't have this like track star burner, like really striking fear into the hearts of defenses type receiver. And there's a couple guys who I think could be like that. I think Tyquan Thornton's a name that gets thrown around a lot, and he's really fast, dude. It was so funny. At the combine, I'm talking with this gentleman, really nice guy that we ended up just talking a little bit. We were sitting in the stands in the same area, and he works with a lot of the trainers for these players. And he was like, "Hey man, I'll be right back. I got to run down and get a glimpse of this 40 time real quick." He's like, "This guy's going to run in the 4.2s." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like you got my attention now." And I'm like, "Who is he?" He's like, Tyquan Thornton out of Baylor. He's going to run in the 4.2s. I'm telling you right now. And he ended up running 4.26, I believe, 4.25, something like that. So he's somebody who has that speed. I think he does have a little bit of, rawness to him, but could develop into that. Calvin Austin's another guy I really like. I think he's somebody that would be very intriguing for the 49ers. Everybody likes Christian Watson. It's hard not to. Christian Watson's he's 6'4". He has 4.3 speed, has great hands, is a great athlete. I don't know that he lasts where the 49ers might be comfortable taking a receiver. So that would be kind of my answer, D, is a burner. Like get me a guy that can really just stress defenses out vertically and open things up underneath and get there for those clear outs and those alert routes and those shot plays that you're going to have a quarterback who can aggressively push the ball downfield with and complement somebody who is like that. Because like dude, if you gave me Marquise Goodwin from 5 years ago on this team right now, I think it'd be a fantastic fit. I know people don't really like hold Marquise Goodwin in the highest regard, but I think his skill set with the quarterback they have now, oh man, dude, it would be really fun to watch. So I hope that answered that to your liking. I agree, Brandon. I wrote an article for Niners Nation, and again, I'm just getting into this YouTube thing, but I've been doing my writing for Niners Nation and SB Nation for a while. So if you guys do like written content as well, please go check out Niners Nation. The team there is fantastic. Honored to be working with a lot of those people, Javi being one of them. And I wrote about how they need to add a veteran guy in the slot. And Chris Harris was a guy that I talked about. And I mentioned that he was top 5 in yards, he was top 5 in yards allowed per target. And he was top 5 in snaps per target, I believe, too. Sorry, I'm running on fumes here. It's been a long weekend. So Chris Harris was basically a guy that teams didn't throw at very often. And when they did throw at him, they weren't getting a lot of yardage. So even though he's a little bit older, like I posted about it, and some guy he's like, oh, he's cooked. He's old. He's cooked. Like I didn't see that personally. And I still see a guy, hey, if you can get him in for a 2-year deal, that's, really a 1-year deal with some kind of option at like $3.5-4 million, I would jump on that in a heartbeat. I think he'd be extremely valuable. Maybe another team's willing to pay him a little bit more, but guys like Harris and Bryce Callahan, really to me, are the guys I would like to see the 49ers add in the slot. Another guy I really like, I like Dante Dieon, who was on the Rams last year. He got called up off the practice squad, was up for 10 games with the Rams last year. And, he wasn't perfect, but he did really good considering what he was asked to do and the fact he had to join the team mid-season. And from what I've seen on tape, like he's a guy that I think the 49ers could bring in and work with that DB group and really, be one of those signings where people might not know who he is when he comes in right away. But as he leaves, he ends up being this guy who's really valuable. Kind of like, K'Wan Williams when he first got brought in. K'Wan Williams wasn't a household name among 49ers fans when he first got brought in. Everybody knows who the Shark is now that he's, gone, and we all wish him well in Denver. So I think that Dante Dion's another guy to watch who could be somebody to watch for that kind of stuff. Let's see. I don't know if that's about Chris Harris or not, Justin, but whatever you're thrilled about, I hope it happens. I hope all of you get to be thrilled about whatever's going on. I am here rooting for all of you, no matter what. Let's see. I think it's more likely they draft 2 offensive linemen, and the reason I say that is they already have, I know they have 11 for sure. They might have 12 defensive linemen under contract. I think it's 11, might be 12. I apologize for not having the exact number, but I think the fact that they already have that many defensive linemen and they have so many proven guys already on the team makes it more likely that it ends up being an offensive line, or them taking 2 offensive linemen, Tony. Javi says Khalil's a stud and Sean was dope. So, hey, like I said, go check those interviews out. It's always good stuff. He is Jerome. Javier is absolutely the man. I did 5 hours last night, but it wasn't just me. There's a bunch of people who I see in the chat right now who did 5 hours too, and they're here grinding too. We're all in this together. I'm not gonna lie, it was really fun, man. I literally, Tony asked me, because we're doing just open Q&A like this. I'm trying to involve everybody as much as possible. I want this to be fun and engaging for people watching. And Tony was like, FaceTime a random 49ers content creator, and it was like 12:30 on the West Coast, and I'm like, well, I can't, hit up Javi or Jason. These guys have families and they're sleeping. So I'm like, Rich is probably awake. So I FaceTime Rich Madrid. He was like, what do you want? Like, and I was like, hey man, I'm on stream. Like, do you want to come on? Rich came on stream. We talked for a couple hours. He had some really good takes. He also had some really bad takes as well. Rich said that like all pasta is the same and they all taste the same. It was just an awful take. And I know as a proud Italian, and I know Tony's in the chat as well, it was very disheartening to hear Rich say that. But he did give his top 5 cereals, candy bars. We got Rich to open up in a way you don't normally see from the master of X's and O's. So it was really fun. So for anybody who was there last night, thank you. I had a ton of fun doing that. And again, all the watch hours for me help out as I'm building the channel now. So thank you to anybody. And again, I know a lot of people tune into this because they want to hear 49er stuff, but if it gets to a point where you have a question about something, like, we talked about like top 5 like waters or like movies and stuff last night, and it was fun. It seemed like people were having a good time. So don't feel obligated to only have it strictly be football stuff. As long as it's appropriate and it's not disrespectful to anybody, we can mix things up with these Q&As and stuff. Again, I want everybody to have fun doing it. So shout out, the whole point of that long-winded rant was shout out to everybody else who did the 5 hours with me, because we had a steady amount of people in there throughout that. Like, it was a pretty good amount of congruent viewers for that. So thank you guys for everybody who did that. Tony's trying to get the plug on Ezra Gray. I mean, I don't know. You might as well represent the guy at this point. You're working overtime for him. I don't know if he has an agent yet already, but you should definitely throw on like a suit and tie and just like pitch yourself as one. Because I think that at this point you're working harder than whoever might be representing him. With all due respect, I don't know if somebody already is, but you might want to pitch him, Tony. You might have a chance to do that. Just throwing that out there. He is a common W for Lalo. We got Wallow in the chat right now. I absolutely agree. Shakir ran a 4.43. Again, I'm not a huge stopwatch guy, but if the numbers look good, then I'm always happy to talk about him. But I don't like this whole like, oh, a guy ran a slow 40, so he's not good. And they expect everybody to run 4.4 and 4.35 now. It's ridiculous, man. These expectations have gotten absurd. I agree. I think Earl Leva is a guy to watch. I believe he's class of 2025. Somebody to keep an eye on. Working the JUCO circuit right now. So he's a junior college guy. He's going to be working through that, and keep an eye on Earl. I think we all believe Earl can be that dude. I am Lalo. I'm talking about it all the time when all these 49ers fans are like, why aren't the Niners more aggressive like the Rams? Why aren't the Rams are making all these moves and the Rams won the Super Bowl and got better? Dude, the Rams brought in Allen Robinson. I like Allen Robinson a lot. And Allen Robinson, when you think about the fact that he's been catching footballs from Andy Dalton, Mitch Trubisky, and Blake Bortles for the majority of his career, and then you look at his numbers, it's astounding what that man's been able to do. But having said that, like, losing Von Miller, to me, I don't, like, if you just take that, right? If you take gaining Allen Robinson and losing Von Miller, that's a net loss for the Rams, in my opinion. I think they've gotten by okay with the receivers they have. I think they would have been able to bring OBJ back on a relatively friendly deal for a year. I don't know how the ACL is going to heal, first of all, but you know, the way modern medicine is, there's a chance he could play for half the season this year. We don't know yet. But regardless of that, yes, the Rams lost a all-pro level left tackle in Andrew Whitworth. Even though he wasn't all-pro the last couple seasons, he was playing at that level. He was really, really good still. They lost him. Lost Von Miller, still one of the best pass rushers in the league. Lost Darius Williams, one of the better number 2 corners in the entire league. Sebastian Joseph Day, who was a fantastic nose tackle for them. They traded Robert Woods, who for a long time, I thought Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, like, dude, in 2020, I said that they, to me, were the best receiving duo in the league because they were so versatile and because they were so good in the run game, because they could run end arounds, they could run the full route tree. And I got a lot of heat for that. And I think that now that Cooper Kupp had this big season, people are coming around a bit to how good they really were. But Robert Woods was holding it down for a long time. He's a really good player. And, you know, we don't know what's going to happen with OBJ. So I've been saying it. I will scream it from the mountaintops. I think the Rams, like most teams that are good and win Super Bowls, it's hard to get better. Like, if you stay the same, that's a net win. And I think that's where it's like, people are like, oh, the 49ers didn't get better. They just stayed the same. Like, well, hey, staying the same is pretty good when you look around the NFC and you see all these teams. Like, the Packers lost Devontae Adams. I'm a Cal guy through and through. I think Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. I don't know how confident I am watching Aaron Rodgers throw balls to Randall Cobb and God, who's the other receiver they have there? The fact I can't even think of it off the top of my head is bugging me right now. Lazard, sorry, Alan Lazard. My apologies. Like, that doesn't really excite me. I have to see it, and I'm sure he'll be fine. You know, there's for every Devontae Adams, there's been a Jake Janis. Like, you know, Jordy Nelson and Greg Jennings and some of these guys weren't like household names before they, you know, came up with the Packers. So maybe they have a path there. But like, I think when you look around, like, the NFC got a little bit weaker as a whole. Pretty, you know, we see all these quarterbacks going to the AFC and the AFC loading up, and Russell Wilson's out of the division now. We don't know what's going to happen with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. Like, the 49ers staying where they were at isn't objectively like a terrible thing. I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world that they're still kind of where they were before. So just want to throw that out there. I think that that's something that, you know, we could circle back on and maybe do another live about once free agency ends, because a lot of people have this like weird envy for the Rams. And it's really funny because if you like rewind, like even just like 2 months, 3 months, it was like, oh, the Rams bought their team, the super team. This isn't going to work. You can't trade all these picks. You can't not draft players. And now all the 49ers fans are coming back around to, well, why aren't the 49ers running their team like the Rams? Like, it's very wishy-washy. I'm just saying, like, those takes live on forever, man. Receipts don't go away. So it's really funny seeing a lot of people backtrack and change their outlook on it just because the Rams won the Super Bowl. So it's a good point, Lalo. Yes, Cam Jorgens or Donovan West in the third round. Cam Jorgens out of Nebraska, Donovan West out of Arizona State. Either of those guys in the third round, I am a very happy camper, and I would be extremely excited to see them do that. I think it would be phenomenal, and they would be very good fits. Javi says 11 currently, and I bet they take one early and an undrafted free agent. I agree. I think they would probably do that too. There's going to be a lot of guys in camp, and it's going to be an absolute – if you guys haven't had the chance to go to training camp, definitely recommend it if you have the chance to do so. By far the best part of watching the training camp on those hot August days in Santa Clara is watching Chris Kocurek, like an absolute maniac, get that defensive line fired up and seeing 11, 12 guys just go at it over and over again. When you're seeing guys like Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw hitting that sled over and over again, like it's a sight to behold. So definitely check that out if you guys ever have a chance to do that. No worries, Dotson. It's all good. I'm happy you're here now. If you guys do enjoy these lives, you want to come in, I'm going to be doing these every single day until I literally cannot because of my schedule. So I'm going to try to find time to do one every single day. So turn the notifications on. Happy to have you guys in. And no matter what the stream is, if it's just me, like if I have a guest or somebody on, it might be harder. But if it's just me, I'm going to incorporate as much Q&A into this as possible so you guys can choose the topics. You can choose things you talk about. You can voice your opinions, and maybe I might disagree or agree, expand on it a bit. But I want you guys to be as much a part of this as I am. So, set those notifications, and please, come on if you guys ever have time. It wouldn't be possible to do this without you. I don't know what this is about. I'm a little behind on the chat. I'm like 7 minutes behind. I hope it was about me saying that you should represent him because I thought that was kind of funny, to be honest. So, yeah, it is true. Rich's middle name is J, but it really is L because that man just be stacking him over and over again. It's Rich L Madrid is what we call him around these parts. I'm just kidding. I love Rich, by the way. Rich is fantastic. Just to clarify, that's just a joke. Realistic outcome for the Niners this season. I think 10-7 and a win in the first round of the playoffs is a realistic outcome. I think if they go 10-7 and they win in the wild card round, whether it's at home or whether it's on the road, like that's a good jumping off point. Realistic expectations. I need to see Trey Lance take some steps forward, and I think he's capable of doing it. I think he's a really good player. We just need to see it on the field week in and week out. And if he shows that he's a guy that can take those steps forward, right now, as a 22-year-old starter in 2022, he's 21. He will be 22 when the season comes around. But as a 22-year-old starter this year, that's encouraging because then when you're 23, 24, 25, and you have this young core and this team to build around, that's when you can really start talking Super Bowl, championships, dynasties, all these things people want to jump in right away. You got to walk before you run, And I think that's where the 49ers are at now, just kind of building consistency. They got back to the playoffs. They had a couple wins in the playoffs. They built that experience. So 10-7, a win in the playoffs is my realistic outcome for the 49ers this season. I am over it, dude. That's the best way I can put this. I am so just upset that we still have to talk about this in March of 2022. I'm sure Jimmy Garoppolo's sick of it. I'm sure the 49ers are sick of it. And it's kind of this annoying scenario where it's not really, you can't really have like a clean break yet. He's going to have to pass that physical. I don't think the 49ers are just going to eat $7.5 million. I know Javi made a really good point earlier too, that the 49ers have done a great job kind of sending a message to players that they're going to take care of them and sending a message to the locker room that they're going to do right by the players as much as they can when it comes to compensation and stuff. So like if it's me personally, I'm not going to lie, I would cut him and eat the $7.5 million and spin it as like a parting gift and like a, thanks for everything you've done. We're going to give Jimmy the chance to get healthy and rehab on his own and find his own team and all that stuff. Because to me, the message it sends is more valuable than the actual money. And it's easy for me to say that because it's not my money and I'm not the one writing the check. But again, if it was me and I was in those shoes and I had to make that call, I would do it. I would eat that money because again, the message that it sends to me is much more valuable than whatever the actual dollar amount is. So that's kind of where I'm at with all that, but I understand the situation and I get it. They're going to have to be patient. They're going to have to wait till he can pass a physical. I don't think he'll really get traded for anything. Maybe a team gives up like a day 3 pick or something, but even then, I don't think it's going to happen. He probably gets cut. They probably move on. But from everything we're hearing, Trey Lance is the guy going forward. I don't think it's going to be a training camp competition. I don't think it's going to be a situation where Jimmy's here again and he's starting again. I frankly wouldn't blame Jimmy Garoppolo if he didn't want to be here again and play anymore here. Like, I think it's time to break this off and end it. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. I hope that answered things as well as I could. My experience at the combine. All right. So I I think I was talking to my dad or somebody about it when I came back, and I told him, I was like, dude, this is literally like the most fun I've had, like the funnest week I've had, and I can't even remember when, like maybe ever. It was a blast. I literally was sleeping for like 4 hours a day. I was getting up. My whole body clock is messed up. I'm getting up at 5 a.m. on the East Coast. It's 2 a.m. on the West Coast. Like it was a mess. I'm not going to lie. It was very difficult, but dude, it was so fun. Like literally walking down the street and seeing NFL coaches, GMs, former players, media people, the Peter Schrager's and Michael Rappaport's and all these people. Like, dude, it was so fun getting to network with all these different media people, getting to talk to beat writers and people who cover teams all over the place, getting on the field, talking to these players, getting to talk to people. Like, dude, talking to RG3 was so cool. Like when I went up to RG3, he wasn't doing media availability. He wasn't doing anything. But I just went up. I'm like, hey, what's up, RG3? I used to run it up with you as Baylor back on NCAA back in the day, the old NCAA football games. And we just started talking a little bit. And I'm like, hey, man, do you mind if I ask you some questions about Trey Lance real quick? And he was so cool about it. Like, it was so easy. Like, as you guys can tell, I sit here and I talked for 5 hours last night. We're going on an hour now. I like talking to people, man. I like being social. And I used to work in sales, so I'm pretty, decent at approaching people and kickstarting a conversation. And that was what was so cool about Indy, was like everybody was receptive to it. You met all kinds of people from all different backgrounds in the sport, and everybody was so kind and willing to share their expertise, their insights. I got to ask scouts and coaches and all these different people about players in the league and players on the Niners and what they thought about stuff, analysts, all these people. And it was so cool getting genuine, honest feedback. So I had the time of my life, dude. I've wanted to do this since I was a little kid, man. I love playing sports when I was younger. I would have loved to be athletically gifted enough to be a professional athlete. I realized pretty soon that probably wasn't going to happen. So I always wanted to get into sports media as kind of like the fallback. So it was really cool to be in like the center of the NFL world doing that. And then the second part of that, I will be covering training camp this year. I'll be covering training camp, the joint practices, the preseason. I'm out here working, man. I'm all about getting it out the mud and earning things. I will have nothing handed to me. I will work for all of it. So yeah, you can catch me at those. The next thing, actually, you can catch me in Vegas. I will be at the draft in Las Vegas, covering that for SB Nation as well as Niners Nation. So I'm going to do some stuff, not just Niners focused, but also on these other draft prospects getting picked. Hopefully get some good questions one-on-one with them. So I'm out here working, man, every single day, trying to do as much as I can. So, yeah, I'll be at both of those. Absolutely. Javier is going to reach out to Ezra. Absolutely. Hey, keep lining him up, dude. I swear, if you guys want to learn anything about prospects, go follow Javi's channel right now, because this guy's literally interviewing everybody and anybody who's worth hearing from, which is awesome. John, my guy, what is up? Thank you so much. I'm going to be here. I'm trying to do this every night, dude, at least a little bit every night. And again, we're sitting here. I was going to do like a half an hour, 20 minutes, and we're here an hour and 15 minutes in. And, you guys are still here vibing with me. So I appreciate you coming by, my guy, John, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And, yeah, we're going to have some fun with this, dude. Let's see. Okay, these ones. Let's see. Sean Jolly from App State, 7th rounder at 5 INTs. All right. That's one to keep an eye on. I'll definitely take a look on his tape and see if I can get some App State film. That might be a little bit harder to come by for the whole full game slate, but I'll definitely see if I can get it. Cole Strange in the 5th. Hey, Avi, if that happens, I'm right there with you. I know a lot of people really like Cole Strange at the Combine. A lot of teams really liked him a lot. Wouldn't surprise me if he ends up going a little bit sooner. Hey, man, you guys didn't hear that from me. I'm not the one who came up with that nickname. You didn't hear that from me. Let's see what else. All right, my guy JC is in here too. Appreciate you coming by. Hey, man, I'm just saying, if you got to get in where you fit in. I'm a big too short guy. Sometimes you got to get in where you fit in, man. And if they want to keep giving me these credentials, I'm going to be there working my tail off, doing what I can. Like this is why I don't think they should. I don't think the return is going to be worth like if Azeez Al-Shaair were to miss a game, or Fred Warner, were to miss a game or two, the depth they have at linebacker right now is really good with Flanagan, Fowles, and Greenlaw. Hypothetically, they could still win games if Al-Shaair and Warner were both out, which is insane when you consider how good both of those players are. So no, I wouldn't, just because I don't think the return is worth, like, especially with him only having a year left on his deal. I don't think a team's going to really give up a ton for him. And I just think that they're better off maintaining that depth, given the fact that we've seen the injury bug completely derail their season. So I think that's why I wouldn't feel too comfortable doing that, if that makes sense. It's something where I'm kind of just like, Sure, you might get like a 5th round pick, 6th round pick or something for him. Maybe the 49ers have a bunch of picks on day 3 already. They don't need any more. They're fine when it comes to that. They're going to be getting comp picks next year too. Maintain the depth, maintain the strength you have in that linebacker room. If it's me, that's just my outlook on it. I think FBS wants to have their own March Madness. You know what I think it comes down to, honestly, Dawson? I think it comes down to like the integrity of like the bowl season. But I also think there's like a path to, like, if it was me, I would have the like a bracket, but I would have like the lesser bowls, like, you know, like the Idaho Potato Bowl and the, you know, the random like Cheez-It Bowl and stuff like that. Like those be the like earlier stage games, then it progresses. And then you also have, you know, obviously have when you have the Final Four, you treat it kind of like the college football playoff where you rotate the New Year's 6 bowls and you have that rotation year in and year out. I think it'd be really fun. I think it'd be cool to see. I think the main thing is just that it's because football is such a physically demanding sport, and you'd have to extend the season or cut the regular season shorter to do that. Because again, these guys, like in basketball, you can play one night and then go back to back, or play on a Wednesday and play again on Friday. You can't do that in football, so it really makes the schedule a lot tougher, which is why I think they're content with the college football playoff now, where they have the semifinals and then they have the final following that 10 days or whatever it is, you know, usually after that. So it's a good idea in theory. It just would like, to me, it's more so like maybe they add like 12 teams, 16 teams or something like that. But even then, like the more teams you add, the more weeks you're getting into, and then it just becomes like, there's a problem, I think, with a lot of the TV contracts, I'd imagine, for the other bowls that happen throughout December. And like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I miss when bowl games mattered. I miss when, hey, like there was 2 teams that got in on the BCS for all its faults. I miss watching, like, dude, that Fiesta Bowl between Oklahoma and Boise State's one of the best football games I've ever seen in my life, still to this day. And it wasn't for the national title and it wasn't a semifinal game. It was just the Fiesta Bowl. But dude, that still, to me, like, I can still vividly remember that game, and that was almost 15 years ago. So I'm kind of the mindset that it's just more so about like the integrity of the other bowl games, if I had to guess. But that's a good question. I definitely appreciate that. But it looks like we're out of questions now. If anybody else has another question or a topic they want to talk about, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm probably going to wrap this up pretty soon, because I don't want to just sit here and filibuster and bore you guys to death talking over and over again. But if you guys have something that you want to talk about or something you want to touch on, I'm happy to do that. But I'm really happy we were able to get an hour and 20 minutes or so out of this. Okay, this is a good one. My favorite football game of all time is Saints 49ers in the divisional round of 2011. It was January 2012, but it was the 2011 season. That by far for me was the most fun I've ever had at a football game. The roller coaster of emotions, and like being there definitely, you know, I got to experience the emotion of that like in person. But dude, that roller coaster in the last 2 minutes, you know, Alex Smith scoring on that design run, and then Breeze hitting Jimmy Graham, and they missed the tackle, and it's like, oh my God, the Niners just blew it. They're going to lose. And then, Vernon Davis, you know, getting the ball downfield, and then that touchdown from Alex Smith to Vernon Davis. Like, I can still hear the Ted Robinson call in my head, even though I didn't listen to it. I was there live, so I didn't hear it, but I can literally sit here and hear the Ted Robinson call in my head, and it was so good. And Ted Robinson's another guy I have so much respect for. I grew up listening to him and Joe Starkey, and those guys were just so good at what they did. And it brings back a lot of memories when I hear that game. So I don't know if you guys have other games you want to talk about. I'd love to hear if you guys have like a favorite Niners game, or you have something that, you know, brings you happy memories. But for me, it's by far that game. Number 2 is probably that game in Seattle in 2019. I was there for that. I have a good buddy. Shout out my guy, Steve Ludwig. He's a Seahawks fan, but he's a really good guy. And he texted me and he's like, what are you doing next weekend? I'm like, I don't know, dude, probably working. What's up? He's like, do you want to go to the game? I'm like, you mean the game that's in Seattle? And he's like, yeah, dude, I can get tickets if you want to go. So I'm like, all right, like, let's go. Like, let's do it. So I hopped on a plane. I flew up to Seattle, called out of work for the day, and ended up getting to see the 49ers clinch the 1 seed, got to see them. I stood up on my seat when Dre Greenlaw made that tackle, because I had a really good angle of it, and I'm not going to pretend like I had like, you know, laser vision to see that he was short, but I'm like, he's short, dude. He didn't get in. And that moment of angst waiting for the ref to come out and call it. And then when he did, there was a shocking amount of 49ers fans at that game. And I'm not going to lie, dude. I was walking around with a little strut in my step, going around Pioneer Square and leaving CenturyLink, going to downtown Seattle to my hotel. For anybody who's been up there, like they love the Dick's hamburgers up there. So my friends like, oh, we'll go get Dick's or whatever. And I'm sitting there in my Kittle jersey, a little buzz. I've been celebrating a little bit, and I'm eating these cheeseburgers with a smile this big on my face. So that was a really fun game too. That's definitely up there for me. Yeah, that's for the bowl opt-outs. I don't blame these guys for not playing. You see these guys get hurt in bowl games right before they're about to enter the NFL. Especially with the guys not getting paid and stuff. Like, to me, I'm not really crying over networks losing out on money when the players are the actual product and they're not getting paid. I'm pro player and I always will be. So I think that's a tough one. 5 to 6. Okay, so we did this last night. I can give you them right now. This is my order. Trent Williams, number 1. Nick Bosa, number 2. Deebo Samuel, number 3. Fred Warner, number 4. Eric Armstead, number 5. And Jimmy Ward, number 6. Those would be my top 6 right now. And I think the Ward and Armstead one is really tough because they're both really good. And week to week, it might fluctuate, but I think those are the 6 best players on the team right now. And I think Kittle's right there too. Like, that's the thing. Like, they have so many good players, dude. It's so hard. I think George Kittle's really important and really good too, but those 6 would be the 6 for me. And it's really hard because they just have so many talented players on the team. Dawson's had some fun. Yeah, Dawson's definitely been able to get some laughs in at the Saints fans' expense, especially after that 2019 game. Jimmy had the big gold chain on, and he's doing the, little dance in the locker room after. That was a good time, too. My dad's player, I think, if I remember correctly, my dad's favorite player was Ronnie Lott. He liked Joe Montana and Jerry and those guys. It was Ronnie Lott, and he really liked John Taylor. He was a big John Taylor guy. My mom used to be a huge 49ers fan too. She still watches the games and stuff, but not nearly as much as she used to. She loved Dwight Clark. She got to work with Dwight Clark for a day. She used to manage a grocery store. And back in the day, the Niners used to do this thing where they had a day where Dwight Clark would come in and like bag groceries for a day. And she had so many nice things to say about Dwight Clark and said he was so kind to everybody who came in, all the employees and everybody. So for my dad, it was either Lott or Taylor. And for my mom, it was Dwight Clark. They were both pretty big Niners fans though back in the day. Yeah, dude, that Boise State Oklahoma game, if you guys are a football fan and you've never seen that game, go to YouTube. I watched it a couple months ago just to like relive it and re-experience it. Go to YouTube whenever you're done with this and look up Oklahoma versus Boise State and watch the last like 5 minutes, because the full game's on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. But if you watch the last like 5 minutes of that game, dude, it's insane. And then Oklahoma like drives down the field and comes like it's electric, dude. It gets me absolutely hyped. That was a good one too. The game, I think it was against Chicago. Was that the game that Aldon Smith had like 5.5 sacks on Monday Night Football? That one was really good. The Patriots-Niners game that year was really good. I'm trying to think what else. It's not a popular answer, but that Kyle Williams game, the 2011 NFC Championship game, is one of my favorite games ever too, because it was so like hard fought. And the punishment that Alex Smith and Eli Manning took in that game, I don't think I've ever seen more brutal. I've never seen a more brutal like outcome in a modern NFL game. I'm sure back in the day it was much different, but again, I'm 26, so for me, like, dude, I don't know if you guys remember, there was the play where Eli Manning comes up to call the timeout, and he's sitting here like this, and his like face mask is supposed to be here, and it's really like over here, and he has like grass in his helmet. It was a battle, dude, till the end. And I know the Niners didn't win, and I know people don't like hearing about Kyle Williams in that game, so I don't want to rub salt in the wound. But just as a football fan, now that I've had time to get over it and mature a bit and like reflect on it, like that to me was one of the best. And dude, it's at Candlestick. I loved Candlestick so much. I feel so bad for 49ers fans that never got the chance to go to Candlestick. No disrespect to Levi's Stadium, it's never going to be Candlestick. The atmosphere there was so special, dude. It was, I remember it. It was like that cloudy kind of like, going from afternoon to evening. You had that like deep blue, like purple sky almost. Like it was like wet, like raining off and on, cold, bone chilling, wet, candlestick, fog rolling in. Like, oh, dude, it was just the perfect, like, the only thing, and it wasn't perfect. If the Niners won, it would have been perfect. But everything other than the outcome of the game was everything I could ask for as a 49ers fan. And it kind of reminded me why I love sports so much. Because I remember walking out of there the week before feeling like $1,000,000 after that Saints game, and then walking out of there, and you could hear a pin drop going down the escalators out of that stadium. And it just kind of reminded me the duality of being a sports fan. Stud nailed it, dude. The home field at Candlestick was different, dude. That place went, especially those couple years towards the end when the 49ers really got rocking again. Because again, I know back in the glory days, it was, before my time, but just speaking from my own experience, like seeing the transition from dude, I would go to games every week when they were terrible in the mid 2000s, and it was fun. You still had a lot of diehard Niners fans, but when they really started to swing the pendulum back and be that dynamic team again under Jim Harbaugh, dude, some of those games, it was electric. I still can, like, to this day, like, I get chills thinking about like the walk in, the tailgates in the parking lot, but the second you stepped on those big escalators and started going up, that's when people would start cheering and clapping, and beers started flowing, and it just was different, man. And sure, it may have been a dump, but it was our dump, and we loved it. It was sacred to us, and that's the thing that's so sad is I think that people that never got to experience it will never be able to understand just how special it was. And I empathize. I'm not sitting here from like an elitist point of view, like, oh, you wouldn't get it. I'm like heartbroken that more people didn't get to experience it. And, I really wish they would have kept it. And, one other thing I would add that's really funny that I never knew was that the big openings, if you guys have been to Levi Stadium, the reason why they have those big openings apparently is that that stadium was designed to go in the north parking lot of Candlestick, where Candlestick was. So through those big openings, you'd get the San Francisco skyline on one side, and then you'd get the bay on the other, and you'd have these nice, breathtaking views. They moved the stadium site to Santa Clara, but they didn't change the design. So you go there and you just have this like big opening that like looks at roller coasters at Great America, and then the other that like looks at like the Hyatt in Santa Clara. So like I thought it was really funny that they moved this entire stadium like 40 miles south, but they didn't change the design at all when they did. It was interesting. It made, because I've always wondered, I'm like, why do they do this? This is so non-conducive to home field advantage to have the stadium open with all the sound pouring out. I used to live like a mile from Levi's Stadium. So whenever the 49ers score, you guys know they have their foghorn that they blow off. The sound would carry so much that because there's the TV delay, 6-7 seconds, whatever it is, I'd be sitting there on my TV and the 49ers are still in the huddle and I'm hearing the foghorn go off. And I'm like, all right, well, they're going to score on this play because I can hear it with my window open down the street. The sound literally would carry through like that greater neighborhood in Santa Clara. So I thought that was super funny. But maybe we'll do an episode and we'll talk about like favorite memories from Candlestick. I think that'd be really cool. I'd love to hear, especially from the folks who've been watching the Niners longer than I've been alive and who've been doing this for a long time. I think it'd be really cool to go down memory lane and honor that special place and the special place it has in my heart. Like I might cry tears of joy when we do that because I have so many happy memories there, man. That stadium was so special. Jay, what is up, dude? Thank you for coming by. I appreciate you coming by last night too. We had a fun time on that stream. Justin, Brandon Jacobs, 49ers legend, all is forgiven, man. Once he put on that red and gold, we had to forgive and forget. How far deep are you into the Cheetos? Because if you already started with Cheetos, Tony, I would not. Maybe it's just me and my weak stomach. I don't think I could go from Cheetos to CTC. But if it's a clean slate, definitely go Cinnamon Toast Crunch. But if you already started the Cheetos, I would not mix, man. That's a recipe for disaster. Let's see. I've watched a bit of it. I watched a lot of Desmond Ridder last year. A little bit of Notre Dame. I watched much more of it last year. I don't think the offenses necessarily would be the problem. I just think it's the size of the players. Like I know people get sick of this like SEC bias and always talking about the SEC and all these things, but there's a reason why that happens. It's because the SEC is so dominant and is so, like the players that they're producing year after year, they're bigger, stronger, faster than most other conferences. I'm a Pac-12 guy. I have no reason to sit here and parade for the SEC and make them out to be this juggernaut that they're not, but they really there's a reason why it happens. So the scheme isn't the problem, Dawson, but if you put Notre Dame or Cincinnati, the teams in the SEC, I think they'd struggle, just like we saw in that game against Cincinnati and Alabama in the playoff. Like you just have bigger, faster, stronger athletes in the SEC. So unfortunately, I think that's the way it goes. But I think that's an interesting question. Okay, so this is a good one. My favorite cereal is Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is the number one draft pick if we're talking cereals. That one's always going to be there. I love most cereal. Like you have to have like it has to be really bad for me not to like mess with a cereal. I like Reese's Puffs. I like Captain Crunch. I like Honey Nut Cheerios. I like Honey Bunches of Oats. I love Frosted Mini Wheats. I love Fruity Pebbles. I don't know if I said Frosted Flakes already. I like Frosted Flakes. Like Apple Jacks, Fruit Loops, like dude, I'm cereal to me is like one of the best foods that's one of the greatest achievements of mankind is breakfast cereal, right? But Cinnamon Toast Crunch is like far and away number one for me. So that's number one. And my favorite water is Core Water. I really like Core Water. Always makes me feel better. The bottles are recycled, so I feel like I'm making a difference, even though I'm realistically probably not, but it makes me feel better. And the water tastes good and it's not expensive. I drink a lot of Smart Water too. And I was mentioning last night, like I get a hard time from some people who know me, but like I drink like Pedialyte or Liquid IV like all the time. Like I drink those like once a day, usually once every other day at minimum. But it helps, man. I feel a lot better. I used to do that when I drink a lot. I rarely drink alcohol anymore, but it works great for hangovers. So if you're already starting with a clean slate, and you're not hungover, just imagine how hydrated you're going to be. So we could talk water and cereal for hours. We'll go back to that in another stream. That was really fun. But if you go, Sean, if you have time, I definitely recommend. I think it was like the 2-hour mark or 3-hour mark last night. We got pretty deep into a cereal discussion, and the chat was getting involved in it too. Let's see. I like it as open, man. I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. I live in San Jose right now. Like my barber cracks me up, dude. He was telling me that when he has relatives come in, he tells them in the Bay Area we have 2 seasons: hot sun and cold sun. Like that's literally how it goes here. Even today, it was a little cloudy, but it was super like nice most of the day. So I think it would be like you'd be at a disservice having a dome because it doesn't get humid. Like I understand like New Orleans, the weather's nice a lot of the time, but it also gets very humid and hot at times. In the Bay Area, it's rarely getting to the point where it's like uncomfortable unless you're staring directly into the sun. To me, the problem with Levi's is that they built half of the stadium literally facing the setting afternoon sun. And I just think that that's such an oversight that like there's no excuse for it. Like, how did you let that happen? So that one definitely was one that I was kind of surprised with. But open would be my answer. The weather here is too nice. It's beautiful here most of the time. Like, or anybody who comes out for games who's not from here, I hope you don't end up coming. Like, I felt so bad for everybody who flew out for the Colts game. We get this like torrential downpour. I was there for whatever it's worth too. I sat there and got absolutely just soaked. I was wearing snowboarding pants and I still got like just completely destroyed by that monsoon. But normally the weather here is like much better. So I would say open simply based on that. I have a ton of memorabilia, Derek. Like for anybody who's seen my stuff before, who knows me, I used to have a whole wall of pictures behind me. I have a very special picture signed by Ricky Williams, which is like one of my prized possessions that I love. Some people have seen and is definitely pretty cool. I have, Michael Vick picture, Patrick Willis, Dante Hall. I have a Dante Hall signed picture that I used to have behind me that I have to bust out. The problem is that I just got done moving. And I haven't had time to unbox everything and get it set up yet. And I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going to put my stuff. Because I'm literally, as you can see, I'm in a corner like behind me here, like across from my kitchen in my living room pretty much. And I'm trying to find a space where I can fit my desk and computer and everything to do this. So I promise you, when I get the full memorabilia set up, I think you'll like it. I have a pretty cool collection of stuff that I've been collecting over the years. That's one of my big hobbies is collecting sports memorabilia. So, check back with me on that, but I'll try to remember. If I forget, DM me on Twitter. I'll send you the picture I have of Dante Hall because you're a Chiefs fan. You'll probably think it's pretty cool. He's one of my favorite players ever. I'm assuming 70% of the Cheetos, Tony. If you're built different and you really want to eat that, go ahead, dude. But like I might take like just the thought of that makes me want to take a Tums right now, dude. I could not do Cheetos and Cinnamon Toast Crunch at the same time. Lucky Charms are underrated. I feel like the marshmallows changed a bit. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like they're not as good as they used to be. I used to love the marshmallows. I was like, dude, my brother hated it because I'd sit there and I'd like pick the marshmallows out of the bag, and then this dude would go to like eat a bowl of it, and it would just be the like whatever the like wheat or the other part of the cereal is, because I'd sit there and like pick out all the like marshmallows. But I feel like they don't taste the same anymore. So I don't really get Lucky Charms too often anymore. I might mess around and get the like only marshmallow ones sometimes if I'm really feeling it, but I'd be surprised if I did. Yeah, probably. If you get SEC players there, they probably, especially for Notre Dame plays a cupcake schedule, man. If you had SEC players in the Notre Dame, they'd be a really good team. But Again, on this channel, until proven otherwise, Notre Dame is fraudulent. So I would love to be proven wrong. And I think the 49ers have gotten some good players out of Notre Dame. And I think that they've produced some good NFL players, but for whatever reason, when they're still in college, it doesn't really work out that well. Again, I'm a big Mike Mcglinchey guy. I hope Mike Mcglinchey doesn't ever see this and hate me, because I think his alma mater's been, pretty fraudulent in recent years, but I think he's a great player for whatever it's worth. Top 5 QBs in the NFL. All right, so if this is just like rapid fire off the top of my head, I'm going to do it in like. All right, so for me, it's right now. I'm just going to give you the 5 in no order, because the order it's specific to a conversation, and like it depends on if you're looking for long-term outlook winning right now. So I'm just going to give you 5. Okay, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Lamar Jackson are my 5 top QBs in the NFL. I think for a few of those, people would agree, and they're not going to think it's a crazy take. I know a lot of people probably disagree with me on Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson's a phenomenal talent. I think he is just a generational athlete, and I think he is very special, and what he's able to do at that position is just transcendent. I'm a big fan of his game, and I have been since his days at Louisville. I thought that it was an abomination that he slid as far as he did. I thought it was absolutely absurd. Teams were asking him to play receiver and change positions and stuff. So I still think Lamar Jackson is a top 5 quarterback in this league. I actually think right now, if I was picking a team from scratch and you had to factor in long-term outlook, longevity, all that stuff, I'd probably take Justin Herbert over anybody. I think just the world of that guy. I think he is so talented and he is so good, has the arm strength, has the pocket presence, is mobile, great ball placement. Like, sure, if I need to win a game right now, it's really hard to go against proven guys like Brady and Mahomes and some of these guys. And like, I got so used to Brady being retired, even in that short span, that I ranked him out. But I also feel like, now that I'm thinking about it, it's almost like blasphemous to not have Tom Brady as a top 5 QB. But those other 4 are so good, man, that it's like, again, it comes back to like long-term outlook and stuff. But if I have to win a game like right now, today, I can't confidently be like, oh, I'd still take Justin Herbert over Tom Brady to win one game right now in the present. So it kind of depends, dude. Maybe I'll do an episode on that, and it'll be fun to hear other people's opinions and stuff like that. But that's a very interesting question. If you do, upload the video on your channel and I'll share it, dude. If you eat hot Cheetos and milk right now, I'll share it. It'd be interesting. I mean, at the worst case, you get some views and some exposure. That would have been kind of cool. SoFi's a beautiful stadium, dude. I had the pleasure. I didn't go there for the regular season games, but I went there for the preseason to cover the game for against the Chargers for Niners Nation. And it was a nice stadium, dude. Like, it's the nicest football stadium I've ever been in. It's so funny too, because it's in like Inglewood, but it's in a pretty, commercial area for the most part. There's some residential stuff nearby, but it's, fairly commercial. Down the street from LAX, like there's not much really like around there, but there's just this massive stadium, and then like the Forum too. So like, it's a beautiful stadium. It's just like the placement of it's super weird, but yeah, I think that I agree. That'd be pretty cool. Oh, heck yeah, dude. Absolutely, dude. Week 18 must have been a crazy experience. I know a lot of people who were there that were going through the motions early on when they didn't think that it was going to end as well as it looked like it would have. So I'm glad that they ended up pulling it out for you. Hey, man, I collect cool memorabilia, and I thought that was a cool moment. If I can find one and get it signed by him, I'll put it on there, but we'll see. Fruity Pebbles are my top cereal, no disrespect. Yeah, I mean, hey, Fruity Pebbles are good too, dude. I don't fault anybody for liking Fruity Pebbles more than Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I think Cinnamon Toast Crunch is definitely something that is worth talking about. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is something that I'm very passionate about, and it's something that I take very seriously. I also saw somebody who's being super disrespectful in the chat. I blocked them out of here. So please, let me know if you see people doing that. I have no time for anybody being rude to anybody in this chat. If you act rude to people in here, you're just going to get blocked. I don't care who you are, if you're trying to be funny or whatever. Like, there's plenty of ways to be funny without being rude to people. So if I see you doing that in here, you're just getting blocked. Like, I'm not going to allow you to sit here and do that. So I apologize to anybody who is being, having to deal with that, but that person is out of here. And anybody being rude in the comments, just know you are getting booted and you will not be coming back. So let's see what else we have. To tour Levi's half the stadium with the setting sun was a Harbaugh thing. He wanted the visiting teams to have sun in their eyes. That's so fun. I wonder, is that really why they did that? Because that's super funny if it is. Because I know that visitor sideline is brutal, man. When the sun's out, that is really tough. I definitely think that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. Like, is that really what's hurting these teams and affecting these teams? That's something definitely that I'll keep an eye on and look at. Let's see. I have been to SoFi. I have been to the Coliseum when it was there in Oakland, Candlestick, Levi's, and Seattle are the ones I've been to. I've been pretty much on the West Coast. Haven't gotten to travel to. Oh, and Lucas Oil. I've been, the Colt Stadium, Lucas Oil as well. I really want to go to Arrowhead. I really want to go to the Superdome. I really want to go see a Bills game in Buffalo. I really want to go to Lambeau, Soldier Field. I want to go to all of them eventually, but those are the ones that are kind of at the top of my list. I'd love to see the Cowboys Stadium too. I heard it's really nice. Not sure if I want to go to the Dolphins Stadium now. I feel like there's still a lot of bad memories there. So I'm kind of, not going to put myself through that emotional roller coaster yet, but I would also go to see Mike McDaniel now. Maybe I can get over it and grow up and do that. So those are probably the Arrowhead, Lambeau, Dallas are probably like the top three for me. And then the Superdome too. I really want to see a game at the Superdome. That's fair, Chardal. Hey, Justin Herbert's really good. I like both of them. I love watching both of them play. I agree, Lal. He's a great player and a really good person. He's just fantastic. I'm a big Lamar Jackson guy. Like that picture of him on the sideline with like the big sunglasses, just like vibing. Like I mess with that to the fullest, dude. That's definitely what I'm about. Yeah, dude, that's great. Like Brady just doesn't stop, man. He could be 50 years old, and I'm still gonna be like, all right, well, this guy's gonna go out and carve up defenses. He's like, he might already be the greatest athlete of all time. Like he's in his own. We were talking in Twitter Spaces, and we were talking about like generational talents, and we were talking about this, and I told these guys in this Twitter space, I'm like, he's not even a generational talent. He's like in his own tier of like once in a like we talk about once in a generation players. He's like once in a lifetime kind of player. So. Brady's phenomenal, dude. He's somebody that I definitely admire watching play the game of football. He's really good at what he does. I have a bit. I think he's really good. I think he's a guy the 49ers could take and have as that, second number 2 tight end with George Kittle and be a solid player. So he's definitely somebody that I would look at in, again, if he's there at 93, 105 or something like that, I definitely think that he's good. Chief Keef, man. Chief Keef came out when I was like still like 15, 16 or whatever. It's Sosa forever over here, dude. He blew up, I think, a little. I don't say too soon, but if he had come out a few years later, I think he would have gotten even more exposure than he already did. I like Dirk. He's good too. But for me, it's nostalgia, man. Like Keef came out when I was still out, goofing around a lot more than I do now. So it's Sosa all day over here, Lalo. Yeah, dude, I went to a game with my dad earlier this year. It was a preseason game against the Raiders, and it was only like 85 degrees or something like that. But sitting in the sun like that, dude, it sucks, man. It's unenjoyable. It's hot. You're just sitting there, like it's rough. And finally, the sun goes on behind the big tower of suites in the second half. But yeah, leading up to that, it is really rough, dude. Let's see. AT&T, SoFi, Levi's, Allegiant. Yeah, I will be there in Vegas for the Allegiant game. That one I'm looking forward to. I definitely plan on being there for that one. That should be a really good time. I talked about this a little bit earlier. I did a whole video on it. If you want a more expanded answer, Sean, if you go to my channel, I did a video on it. It's like 15 minutes or something like that. I think the odds of him getting traded are 5%, 7%. Something. I don't think it's going to happen. Like you can never say never. So I can't sit here and say 0, but I don't think it's going to happen, man. If it did have to happen, it would have to start at minimum like a first and a second probably. And I think a lot of Adams got moved for what he did, and Tyreek Hill got moved for what he did. But Deebo still has a year of very affordable control for whatever team gets him if they were to trade him. I just don't think it's going to happen. So. Again, 7%. And if it happens, like it has to be a lot. If the draft compensation comes, it has to just be a lot. I wish I could give you a more specified number, like all them picks. If I'm John Lynch, I want like a Turkey Williams trade for Samuel, where you're getting the team's entire, cachet of draft pick in the year. That's why, again, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that another team's willing to give up what Deebo's worth, to be honest. I don't think it's top 5 with QB most armed and most runner unpressured. Yeah, that's a good list, and I respect that. Like, everybody has different preferences, and that's what's cool about the discussion. I don't think there's any objective thing we can point at and be like, well, this quarterback's better than this one, because if people throw out wins and stats, like so much of it goes into that. It's cool just to have differing opinions. Like, hey, if you think Sam Darnold's a top 5 QB, then yeah, I might not be able to take that opinion too seriously. I respect you for having it, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, okay, well, this is why Sam Darnold's been put in the position he's in. He can't. But when you talk about other guys that are at the top, it's hard to really differentiate some of these guys. So it can be kind of hard sometimes. Let's see. SoFi is by far the prettiest, but it are pretty nice as well. Hey man, I was at that game too. Pick at the stick with Navarro Bowman. I remember sitting at that game and I'm like, there's no way the stadium's going to close like this. I was like, there's no way this can happen. That was a really fun game, dude. And Navarro Bowman running that ball back. Oh, what a fun time. That whole just stretch under Jim Harbaugh was so good. For any of you guys who are new to the channel, maybe tonight or not watching, this is a pro Jim Harbaugh channel. We love Kyle Shanahan too, but this is a pro Jim Harbaugh channel. So if you're ever, struggling late at night, just, looking out the window, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Jim Harbaugh, what he's up to, reminiscing on past days, you're not alone. You have friends in the chat. You have friends in the channel. So this is a very pro Jim Harbaugh era 49ers channel. I grew up playing like when I was a kid, my favorite game was like probably San Andreas. I love playing Grand Theft Auto. I love Mercenaries too. For anybody who played Mercenaries, Playground of Destruction, that game was so ahead of its time, dude. Love playing that. I'd play like Jack and Daxter and like Ratchet and Clank and stuff like that too. And then as I got older, a lot of Call of Duty. I still think Modern Warfare 2 and like Call of Duty 4 are like the best ones by far. All these years later, I don't think any of those games have come close to that. When Fortnite first came out, I played that with my friends. Then it got to the point where it was just like I was getting like destroyed by these people like on computers building and stuff. So funny enough, Andrew Pasquini actually texted me a couple days ago and was like, hey, they got rid of building in Fortnite. Like we should play sometime. So maybe I'll play Fortnite again. It was fun for a while. I like those battle royale kind of games. Now all I really play is I play Warzone, and then I play Grand Theft Auto with my friends every once in a while because it's fun to hop on and not have like, the stressful situation where you're like in a circle that's closing and you have to like clutch out a win. And it's like, everybody's all anxious and freaking out. Like you can just kind of like drive around and mess around and do stuff. So I still play Grand Theft Auto, but I unfortunately haven't set up. I've been in my new place for a bit and I'm still unpacking and doing stuff. So I haven't really been playing lately, but I do play Grand Theft Auto every once in a while. That's probably what I play the most nowadays. Yeah, Levi's is different, man. The sound doesn't stay in as much, and it's just like a lot of sporting stuff here, unfortunately. Like, dude, I'm a diehard Warriors fan. I remember going to Warriors games when that place was Oracle in Oakland was still open, was the loudest building in the entire sport. That place was crazy, man. But unfortunately, as these teams get better, the prices go up, and a lot of the people, unfortunately, that are going to these games are not really the most invested sports fans. They're just, it's a casual outing. Hey, let's go watch the 49ers game. And instead of seeing people decked out in Fred Warner jerseys and George Kittle jerseys, you have guys wearing like Patagonia vests and like, they're out on like a tech company outing or something like that. So, hey, man, I'm not going to sit here and hate on a company for having a successful business like the Niners have had, but it's also super unfortunate that it feels like a lot of the great energy from the common fan has been kind of priced out at not only Levi's, but a lot of these other stadiums, man. I live in San Jose. I go to Sharks games all the time. Sharks tickets are still even really expensive, and they haven't even been a good team this year, but because they are getting so much money from these, a lot of people in Silicon Valley make a lot of money. If you're just kind of like an ordinary dude like me and a lot of other people, like it's hard to afford to go to these games. Dude, I went to a Warriors game in Denver 2 weeks ago. And it's the first time I've been to a Warriors game in person in like years because the tickets at Chase Center are outrageous. If I leave here to go to a game at Chase Center, I have to pay for gas, parking, food, everything. It's so expensive where I'm just like, dude, I might as well just like watch this on TV at home. And it sucks because I love that team, dude. I used to go to games when they were absolutely terrible. Like before Stephen Curry, like when they were just a terrible team, I was still locked in, and it sucks that kind of has happened. So that's probably why I think it has happened. Yeah, this is how I feel too. Lamar, what he's done with less is extremely impressive. And to have the unanimous MVP season he had, all the things he's been able to accomplish, and people still throw so much unneeded shade and so much unneeded doubt at him. I just think it's so unfair. Again, I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. I think he's going to be really good if they add some good weapons. I like Rashad Bateman too. I think Rashad Bateman's going to be a really good player. I'm admittedly an Antonio Brown truther as well. I know he's been acting a little different, however you want to put it off the field. On the field, he's still so talented. If you put Antonio Brown on that team next year, like, look out, dude. I don't know if that's a realistic option, but it'd be fun to think about. We've spent some time talking about Shakir. Again, if you haven't heard or you just joined, Javi Vega, Fulton Gold podcast, did a really good podcast with Shakir earlier today. I don't know what this is for, but thank you. I'm trying to catch up. I'm late, but I appreciate all the support. I agree. I got love for my people on the East Coast and out in the Midwest and stuff, but hey man, I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. You know what I mean? It's we know what we got out here. That's fair. They were 14-2 team though. You know, Harbaugh winning the coach of the year over Kyle. Like, I get it, but it made sense to me. I'll be out there, and you guys got to put me on that barbecue, Derek. I want that real KC barbecue. That's one thing. I love the Bay Area, but if we're talking about shortcomings, there's not a lot of options for really good barbecue out here. You have to go out of your way to get it, and I need some of that KC barbecue. So I'm definitely on that. I would love to go to Death Valley to see a game. That's on my list. If we're talking overall, I'm supposed to go actually with Brad Graham. We're planning it not necessarily just for this season, but that's like on our like bucket list. Brad and I are trying to go to LSU to see a game, which would be really cool. I think that there's some slot guys they could still sign. I think that they should go out and sign like Chris Harris or Bryce Callahan. I think that would be their best overall move. If they can make the money work, hey man, Jadeveon Clowney's still out there. Guys like Gilmore are still out there, but they're also still out there, I think, because they want a certain amount of money. And I don't think the 49ers are in a spot where they're looking to pay guys that much. So those would be the guys for me right now. The slot guys, like the emphasis on the slot. They really, really need to address that slot position with a veteran guy, in my opinion. And I think there's some guys out there who are still really good. It does go on, and it's just kind of like people are going to stick with whatever their bias is. So if people think that he's a really good player, then they're going to stick to all the things you could point to. And if people think he's not a good player, they're going to point to all the things that point to him not being a good player. And it's one of those discussions, like, sure, most conversations start like that, but there's some middle ground between them that you can find. With Lamar Jackson, it like never gets to that. It's just people dig in even further with their stances where they already are. I don't think so I think that Justin Herbert's better than Joe Burrow, and I get pushed back on that all the time. People say that I'm like dumb or stupid for thinking that, where I'm like, okay, like I don't know how you come away with that. Like, even if you think Joe Burrow is better, like I don't think it's that crazy to say that. So I definitely think there is a bit of like, I don't say overinflation with Joe Burrow, but he's definitely regarded as this like transcendent player where I'm like, he's good. Like his ball placement is really good. I think him as a person too, like he's a fun football player to watch in this league, but I think that we need to like pump the brakes on like crowning him as like this top 3 quarterback and stuff like that. So I'm with you on that. I need to catch up. I'm so far behind. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, the money you save, but like, dude, the Raiders saved a bunch of money when they traded Khalil Mack and they got Antonio Brown and Tyrell Williams. Didn't really work out too well for them. Like, sure, sometimes it can work out in theory, but a lot of times I'd rather just pay the proven commodity, to be honest. That's kind of my stance. Yes, real men reminisce about Jim. We all have those moments where we just break down and we just think about Jim Harbaugh. So I'm there with you guys. Lalo, fellow Jim Harbaugh enthusiast here. I'm there with you. Okay, and Tony, just to clarify, is saying he would not trade Deebo at the current moment. It was Mercenaries. If you guys never played Mercenaries, Playground of Destruction, I don't know if any of you have PS2 still anymore. Maybe it was on Xbox too. I don't remember if it was on. I played it on PlayStation 2. That game was so fun, dude. I would play it right now if I had a PS2 still. That thing was so fun, dude. Really good game. Yeah, you could literally, dude, they had like destructible environments and you could like buildings would collapse and stuff. Like it was way ahead of its time. Like if you remastered that game with modern graphics, it would be so good. Yeah, man, hey, those pleated khakis. He started a movement with those and that like 49ers pullover with like the SF and like the red Sharpie, man. Oh, it's just Oh man, those were the good days. SmackDown versus Raw, yeah, it's a good game. I know a lot of people like that. Oh, another one I love playing too. The NHL video games are really fun for like sporting games. It's really like fast paced and like quick. Like there's a lot of action going on, so it keeps me pretty engaged. I'm not great at it, but I enjoy playing it. The NHL games are super fun too. Nice, Dawson. Heck, hey, maybe you can play with me and Andrew and carry us a little bit if we end up playing. I'll DM you and send you my gamer tag and stuff, and we can play. Yeah. See, Lalo gets it. That game was so fun. I used to be when I was younger. I loved the era when it was like The Rock and Steve Austin and like Goldberg and those guys, but like I admittedly don't watch too much lately. I haven't really been keeping up with it too much, but I mean, I'm all for like the theatrics that go into wrestling and how entertaining that stuff was. I just don't really watch it too much anymore, to be honest. I wish I could say I'm keeping up to date with it, but it's been a while since I've watched a lot. This is a good question, Shardal. Thank you so much. Anytime that I get mentioned in the same sentence as Vish Kumaran, I take that as the utmost compliment because Vish is one of the brightest minds I've ever spoken to about anything. Most of you guys, I assume, already know Vish, and if you don't, you definitely need to check out his stuff because he is just so good at what he does. He is so good at thinking outside the box and looking at things from an angle that I would never even think of. So to answer the latter part first, I will be doing a show with Vish. I reached out to him and it's just a matter of he's a very busy guy. And when he has time, we're going to figure out a time. But I have talked to him about it and it would be great to have him on because he's so good at what he does and he provides so much insight. So I'll let you guys know as soon as it happens because I'm thrilled to have that. And, for the next 5 years, like I hope to see myself on a more permanent beat, whether it's with the 49ers or whether it's with another team somewhere. I just want to be making progress, doing what I'm doing in sports media and getting to talk about sports like I'm doing now. And, still being able to, see family and take care of friends and stuff. At the end of the day, man, life's all about being happy. And as much as it can be stressful and tough at times, I love doing this. I get tremendous joy out of hanging out, talking sports, writing articles, doing all these things. So if I can do anything in that capacity 5 years from now, I'm going to feel pretty good about where I'm at. So that's kind of my goal, Shardal, is I just want to continue to be progressing in this field. And hopefully people are enjoying my content and hopefully I'm bringing some joy to people who like watching sports or at least, giving them some insight on something they might not have thought of. Like if I'm making even just one person's life better as a sports fan in 5 years, then I'll feel content with what I've been doing. But that's a great question. And thank you so much for the support. I love that you're hanging out and watching with us, dude. So thank you so much for that. No, it's hard because I've gone back and forth on this, but the more I think about it, like no, because what Kaepernick had to do on the road in Atlanta was really hard. And even beating Green Bay at home that year was like, I'm not confident that Alex Smith wins both of those games. That's really, that's hard. So I'm going to say no. I don't fault him for sticking with that. It's a good question though. John asking, should Lamar look for Watson money in that contract? I don't know if anybody's going to get Watson's contract, to be honest, John. I think that Cleveland was coming from a place of desperation. $230 million fully guaranteed is just like, I'm still like, I can't even believe that happened. So I think that he still should get I think Lamar is going to get around 43, 44, maybe even 45 million a year. And I think he's worth that. He might even get more than that, but I think that's kind of a comfortable range where he probably ends up. Who wins MVP in the NBA? It's probably going to be like Embiid. I think it should be Jokic. I think Jokic, like he to me looks more impressive this year than he did the year he did win MVP. And I think that he has had to do more with less all season. And if I had to pick and I had to vote, I would vote for Jokic. I just don't think he's going to end up winning. I think it'll be Embiid probably. And I think Embiid's had a good season too. But if it's me, I'm picking Jokic. Yes and no. I think that it's if you isolate just the Ravens game, maybe Luke. I don't know that they get to the Ravens game with Alex Smith starting the rest of that season. So that's where I'm kind of like, it's hard. It's hard to see that playing out the exact same way. It was really hard. You should stack them on top of each other, Tony, to form like one like giant superhuman. Like put Sproles and Gray like on top of one of each other, and have that be like just one massive human being in the thumbnail for your video. I think that would be really cool. I think I've played it on like the old like arcade systems, Justin, like the with like the joystick and the buttons, like the big arcade thing. But I don't remember playing it on like a console, to be honest. That'll be sick, dude, at SoFi. I appreciate it. Hey man, I'm out here, like I said, I'm out here trying to get it out the mud, man. This is all steps in the right direction, hopefully. He is, dude. Jokic is crazy, man. That he's ridiculously good at what he does. No, I will not be doing the Sprite Banana Challenge. I'm sorry. Even if I get 330,000 subs, sorry, I would not do that challenge. That's just no. Sorry, Tony. Don't mean to disappoint you, but it's not happening, dude. Yeah, I think Cedric Wilson would have been a good receiver on a lot of teams. I don't think the Niners were in a luxury spot to sign a guy like that for what he went for, but I think that it would have been a good fit. I just don't think that. Again, I just don't think it would have worked out for what they were looking to do. But fit wise, sure. I just don't think the money would have really been there for it. Yeah, I think Alex Smith, I think it's not the exact same, but it's kind of similar to where the 49ers are at with Jimmy G, where it's like, hey man, you can win football games. The Chiefs won football games with Alex Smith. He had one of the most efficient seasons of his career in 2017. As you know, he's a consummate pro. He's somebody that teammates love to rally around and be around. But at a certain point, like the ceiling gets capped. And I think that's where they went out and they got somebody like Mahomes and why they made that move. But I think he was fine. I think they got definitely the value that they gave up a second round pick to get him. And I think they definitely got their money's worth and their value's worth out of it. Let's see. Yeah, maybe he does. We'll see. That would have been a really interesting Super Bowl to watch. But maybe the 49ers lose that one to the Patriots. Who knows, man? It's really hard to just like say that the Patriots don't win that game because they were a pretty good team too. But yeah, it's always a what if. I definitely feel that. I haven't seen the new Batman yet. I am waiting till it comes out on HBO Max because I'm super lazy and I just like going to movie theaters is like a whole to do. It's like, I don't know. I'm lazy, man. So I'm going to watch it when it comes out on HBO Max, I think like a few weeks from now. I've seen that scene though that you're talking about. It looked pretty good. I don't know if they're adding that to like the next one or what the deal is, but I heard Robert Pattinson was a pretty good Batman and it was a pretty good movie. So I'm excited to see it. I'm also one of those guys where like I felt like the Christopher Nolan Batman with Christian Bale was so good. Like that series was so good that it's like hard for me to envision something getting better than like, dude, The Dark Knight to me is still, it's like masterpiece. Like that like meme of like the Martin Scorsese going like, this is cinema. Like that's like The Dark Knight for me. That movie was perfect for like a big budget movie like that. I'll watch eventually. I just haven't come around to it. I'm admittedly not like the biggest comic guy. So like the last Spider-Man I saw was like the Spider-Man where he like fights the big like sand dude, like whenever that was. Like to me, like Tobey Maguire is still my Spider-Man because he's the last Spider-Man that I've watched. So again, I'm not hating or anything. I just personally am not like super into it. Like my brother's like a huge like Marvel and like DC guy and all that, especially with the Marvel stuff. I never saw any, like the last Marvel movie I saw was like the first Iron Man, dude. So I just am not, it's just not my like bag, but I respect anybody who does. If you have Marvel questions or superhero questions, Jason Aponte is your guy. He is like an encyclopedia when it comes to that stuff. All right, Wallow's saying that the new one rivals it, so I'm gonna have to watch it. I'll let you guys know. I'll watch it and maybe talk about it a bit. I think it comes out on like the 18th of this month or something like that. But yeah, I think that's what happens in free agency every year, and that's why I think this whole spending big money on free agents is a ridiculous argument because a lot of these guys get paid so much money because they have to go to bad teams. I like Christian Kirk. I think he'd be a decent receiver, but I also think that, the Jaguars overpaid a little bit, and they better get some good production out of him, or else that contract's going to look really bad. So I don't know if you guys have anything else that you wanted to talk about. But I'm not going to lie. I still have to write an article tonight and I have to do some other stuff. So I'm probably going to hop off soon. I'm really glad we got to turn this into longer than the like 10 minutes or so that it felt like it was going to be when I was first starting out, and it was kind of slow. So we had some fun. So I don't know if there's anything else that you guys want to talk about, but if you do, get it in quickly. I'll give you a second to do that. If not, I'm probably going to hop off, but I probably will do something again tomorrow. Hopefully there's something to talk about. Maybe it'll be more of an open thing where I can talk about, not just football. We can have a discussion about, other sports and stuff like that. But thank you, Wallow. I appreciate it. Let's see. There's something here. Yeah, I agree with that, JR. I think that's definitely a plan that they try to do. Yeah, hey, man, I remember playing back in the day with Trent Green on Madden all the time because I wanted to be Priest Holmes and Larry Johnson so often and use Dante Hall. And I can imagine if somebody who was frustrated playing with he was probably one of the better quarterbacks they had in that span. Playing with him upset me on Madden. I can only imagine how it was as a fan. So I definitely feel that, my guy. Let's see. I feel like players that are like that, I think there's a lot of resentment from those older players who were superstars that are seeing guys that are nowhere near as talented as they were getting broken off big bags. But it's kind of just the way it goes. I mean, I can imagine there's a little bit of bitterness there, but there's not really, what are you going to do? Be like, oh, sorry, you can't pay me this money because Jerry Rice didn't get this much when he played. It's just kind of an unfortunate circumstance. For a video script, I'm not sure. Maybe send me a DM about that, Dawson. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Send me a DM on Twitter if I can help with that, and I will see if I can help because I'm not sure what you mean by video script. But yeah, send me a DM if you can, and I will try to. I'll respond right away and see if I can help with that. Thank you, Hendricks. Appreciate it. I'm still debating. I might turn this into Splash Cousin Sports to keep the name alive. We'll see. I just want people to get it mixed up and think this is like a Warriors stand. I'm a big Warriors fan, but I don't want it to get misconstrued where people think this is just a Again, I'm a proud Warriors fan, but there's not a lot of people around the league don't really like Warriors fans. So I'm debating whether or not I should do that or not and go with that. So we'll see. Luke, thank you so much for coming by, dude. I always appreciate the support. Yeah, Jerry Rice, he's doing a lot of stuff. He's definitely working. He's still earning money, but I think that I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up then. I think it doesn't seem like there's really any more questions or anything. And again, I got to write and do some stuff, so I don't want to be rude and hop off. But I'll be back tomorrow. And again, I'm going to try to do these Q&As as much as I can because this is super fun when you guys get involved and you give me stuff to talk about. Because I realistically came out, I was out of things to talk about 2 hours ago, and we were able to keep this going. So again, we'll keep it light. It doesn't always have to be sports. We can talk about other stuff. We can talk about other sports too. It doesn't have to be just 49ers, man. Hey, the NBA playoffs are coming up. Baseball's starting. Let's keep this rocking, man. This is super fun, and this is just the beginning, man. So I can't wait to do this. Thank you guys so much for all the love, John, Jay. I really appreciate it. My guy Derek, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man. Hey, this is part of the reason why I'm doing this is I want to get better at, speaking with a microphone in front of me, talking in front of the camera and doing this. So I wouldn't be able to do this without your guys' support. Lalo, thank you so much for coming by, dude. Justin, Brian, I really appreciate it. I saw you on with Jason earlier. I thought it was fantastic. I loved the Jeff Garcia story. I thought that was really cool. So thank you for coming by. I really appreciate it. Shardall, good night to you too, my guy. Thank you so much for coming by, dude. I really appreciate it. Dawson, we'll definitely get into some college stuff too. That'll be really fun. I'll be able to talk about the Pac-12 regaining its spot amongst the top. I hate to say that because I'm a Cal fan, but I don't want to sound like one of these SEC fans that's chanting the conference name. But I'm going to end up doing that when USC is the only team from the conference in the playoff year after year. So we'll talk about that. Tony, my guy, send me that thumbnail. I want to see Ezra Gray or Darren Sproles on one or the other's shoulder. I think that'd be hilarious. Send it to me. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get out of here. You guys, thank you again for everything. And everybody.